Welcome back to another live stream. Hopefully I've gotten everything correct this time. And I didn't because my volume was on the other stream that I've got going. So there's always got to be one mistake, hasn't there? Um, so this one is. I don't think I've done a stream like this before. I'm just trying to think. I think I used to do sort of chill streams. And I guess this is kind of like that, right? So, like, yeah, I mean, it's obvious what we're doing in this one. It's in the title and the thumbnail. So, I've pulled together a bunch of different antinatalist videos from, well, antinatalist and like sort of related to antinatalism. From across YouTube, I just pulled together some ones I thought would be decent to look at, and I also put out a form for people to send any suggestions in as well. So I've got a playlist together that we're going to work our way through. I don't know. We're not going to get through all of it because the playlist itself is multiple hours, and it would take even longer because we're reacting to it. So it's like you've got to actually have the amount of time the video is, and then you've also got to like for all the pauses and talking and stuff. So we're not going to get through all of it. So I haven't really got any preamble, to be honest. The only thing I was going to say was like, apologies if we don't get to the video. If you sent a form submission in with a suggestion of what to do, apologies if we don't get to yours. It's just a matter of time. And what I've tried to do is sort of, there were some videos I added in the playlist and suggested ones, and I tried to equally space those out. So I think it sort of goes one and one and one and one, if you get what I mean. Yeah, so we'll see if we get to everyone's. There are a few sent in by people that I didn't add to the playlist for a couple of reasons. Some of them were just way too long, so I wanted the clips to be around 5 to 10 minutes. There are two, I think, which are 20-ish minutes, and the reason I included those is because they were like multiple people requested those ones to be included, and 20 minutes is not really pushing it that much over the line, right? So but some people sent in ones that were like an hour long, and it's like it's not going to work in this stream. And then yeah, there were, and then there were a couple that people sent in that had like lots of music in it and stuff, and YouTube wouldn't like that. It would just copyright, and it would just be too complicated. So I left those ones out. And one other thing that I wanted to mention as well. I'm not sure when I'll do this, but someone sent in suggesting that I react in this live stream to one of Antinatalist MD's videos. So for anyone that doesn't know, Antinatalist MD is a YouTube channel of a doctor who is antinatalist and I'm pretty sure every video fits into one series on this guy's channel, but it's basically like episode 1, 2, 3, 4, blah blah blah, and each episode is about a different topic, and yeah, I think a lot of them were uploaded quite a while ago, and then recently he uploaded like one or two more. But anyway, the reason I didn't include that is because I was thinking about doing a live stream, like an Antinatalist MD live stream, where we just go through all of them. Although there are lots, so it probably have to be split into two live streams. But yeah, I haven't actually watched really much of those videos. I've just heard from people that they're good. I might have a quick flick through them to see if there's enough stuff there to like react to be able to do a live stream. But yeah, if anyone wants to see that, then put in the chat or the comments after the stream's finished. And yeah, and let me know if you want to see that live stream happen. Cool. That was all I had on my notes to talk about before we actually start going into the videos. So before we actually go in, I'm just gonna see who's in the chat. So Shapako's in the chat. Brant, morning Brant, and Brant is asking, have you seen Gary's response videos? Oh yeah, so Emendum, a YouTuber who's called Gary, which is why he's calling him Gary, did some videos reacting. Well, I say some. There's quite a few now. I think reacting to two things I did. One of them was the discussion I had with the creationist guy, and the other one, I think it was on the discussion I hosted about the definition. I can't remember, but he made like 2 to 3 hours worth of reaction videos for each of those, so there was quite a lot. So I didn't actually watch all of it, to be honest, because there was just so much there. But so I saw most of both of those, but I didn't watch all of it because there was just so much. And I've seen them. And Medcos is asking if an archive of the stream will be available. So yeah, once this stream is finished, it'll be just added to the live tab on the channel. So if you go on my channel and click on the live tab, it has all the lives that I've done there, so you can go back and watch them, and this one will be added. Cool. Okay. Cool. All right. I don't want to get sucked in too much to the chat because I know I'll spend so much time talking, and we got to get into reacting to these. So yeah, let's start. So, oh no, sorry, I've just I'm not sure why it's done that. Okay, so I'm just going to need to add myself back into the video reaction thing. So give me like 2 seconds, because I don't know. I'm actually not sure why it's deleted because I didn't delete it. But yeah, give me 2 seconds, and I'm just going to add myself back in. Okay, hopefully you guys see me now. Just make myself, how small shall I make myself? Like that? I think that's small enough, right? Okay, cool. Okay, nice. Sorry about that. I don't know why that had deleted, to be honest. Cool. So the first one that we're going to be watching is Voluntary Extinction by Solar Sands, which I've been told, I haven't actually done like research into this, but I've been told by people this is the most viewed video on YouTube on the topic of antinatalism. So yeah, that I think that presumably that's why it was requested so much, right? Because multiple people requested this one. So, and this is one of the ones that's 25 minutes, this one. So cool. I reckon let's just get straight into it. As always, if you're in the supporter community, you can you'll be in the Discord, and you can put a message in the live stream channel, and that will take priority, and I'll respond to all of those. If anyone wants to join the supporter community, there is a link in the pin. Actually, is it in the pinned comment? No, it's not in the pinned comment. It'll be in the description. Yeah, it's in the description under Patreon. So cool. Okay, let's begin then, shall we? Let me know if there's any audio issues. There was an issue last time where the video was too quiet. I think I've sorted that out. But yeah, everything on my end is whacked up to full on volume for the video, so I'm not going to be able to increase the video anymore, to be honest. But I think it should be fixed.
We could theoretically end all of human suffering with one generation. More realistically, a few generations, but one is all that is required. Now, here's the catch. The solution is not all that clever. Extinction would end all human suffering. Now, there's a reason I say a generation. When I say extinction, I'm not talking about some numbnut starting a nuclear war, or some cosmic event, like a gamma ray burst occurring randomly and destroying our ozone layer in seconds, exposing all life on Earth to deadly amounts of ultraviolet radiation, or an alien civilization that views humans as nothing but pests. No, this is extinction without any violence, any killing, or against anybody's will. Extinction from the result of everyone on Earth agreeing not to have any more children. Antinatalism is the idea that procreation is morally wrong. For many of you, that may sound like nothing more than absurd pessimism, an idea born out of the mind of an emo teenager that didn't get enough hugs as a kid, an idea that is so clearly wrong and so clearly
I just the reason I laugh is just because, I mean, one, it's something everyone says, so it's kind of predictable, so it's just funny that it's included. I don't like, it's a bit of a running joke, I guess, with antinatalists, but also like there is some truth to that, and I think we can like be honest, right, and like laugh at ourselves sometimes. Like there is some truth to the fact that if you just take what it sounds like, it does sound like something an emo teenager would say.
Backwards. It requires no further contemplation. However, antinatalism, as simple as its premise is, contains much more than meets the eye, and the philosophy around it brings up a lot of interesting questions. The discussions and writings of the people who advocate for it, along with those of the people who are against it, say a lot about how we think about and value morality, rationality, logic, duty, and life itself. As you can imagine, the subjects I'm going to explore get extremely dark, so those who are not sound of mind or are made uncomfortable by these kinds of conversations, I would advise to click off this video. I'll also have to ask you to leave any knee-jerk reactions at the door, as this subject messes with some of our most primal drives, and obviously many people will foster a lot of prejudgment without hearing about what antinatalism actually entails.
So I've not actually seen this video before. I don't think, if I have, it must have been when it first came out, which is like over 2 years ago now. So if I have seen this before, I've got no memory of it, so I don't actually know what his take is, but the way he's setting it up at the moment seems like he's going to be fairly reasonable. I think what's likely going to be the case is that he's got some misunderstandings, which means that his criticisms will be slightly misaimed. But and the reason I assume that is just because every video I've seen has that. There's some misunderstanding, but I'm sure it's a good faith one, But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what his take is, because it seems like he's coming from a good sort of hearted place.
I'm going to present antinatalism as objectively as I can. The arguments and ideas about antinatalism.
Oh, so there's Raphael Samuel. So if anyone wants to see an interview with this guy on screen now, it's my latest video is an interview or a discussion with Raphael Samuel, probably one of the most internationally well-known antinatalists, at least at a time he was, because he went viral at one point. But yeah, you can check that out.
Are fascinating in a morbid way. If you're optimistic about life and still open-minded, you may find this as an interesting counter-perspective on an issue most people don't even question. And if you're one of those people who wish they'd never been born, you might find comfort in the fact that you're not alone. Antinatalism is not unprecedented. Even in the Bible, there are a few passages that allude to the idea, but most do not endorse it. Probably the most famous is Matthew 26:24, "For the Son of Man must die, as the scriptures declared long ago. But how terrible it would be for the one who betrays him. It would be far better for that man if he had never been born." Today, Catholic nuns and priests are not allowed to get married or have children. A similar antinatalist sentiment has been made by Sophocles, and wishing never to have been born is even a line in one of Queen's most famous songs.
Yeah, I think, like, I mean, I know the line obviously that he's talking about. So that's a line from Queen's. I would say Bohemian Rhapsody is their most famous song, right? I mean, they have a lot of famous songs, but that's probably their most famous song. Um, and yeah, some like saying something along the lines of like, I sometimes wish I'd never been born at all. Like it. So different people have different takes on this, you know. So like, um, one, so uh, yeah, a couple of people I know like interpret it different ways. So there, someone I saw recently. I won't say any of their names, just in case they don't want me to. But someone I saw recently, I was having a conversation with him, and I mentioned this to him. I was like, I've actually been writing the script to a new video, which is about this poem, which I think has a very anti-natalist message, but I'm not sure. Like, it can be interpreted in an anti-natalist way, and it like very much lends itself to that. But I don't know if that suggests the actual author is one, and he was actually trying to communicate that exact message, because sometimes people say stuff like that which sound very anti-natalist, but it doesn't necessarily signify that they actually were communicating like anti-natalist philosophy, if you get what I mean. Now he disagreed with that. He thought that when people say that, they are sort of it's a sign of them sort of unleashing some sort of deep truth, basically, that they actually believe, but it's maybe being suppressed. But this, when they say stuff like this, it's actually a moment where it's coming out. But then I've got another friend who he is often quite skeptical about things like this, because there are you know, many times when people will say things which can seem very aligned with one thing, but actually they were meaning it in either a different way, or they didn't intend it to have as deep a meaning as some people take it to be. So with stuff like this, I don't know, like he's using it as an example of like antinatalism in wider culture. I don't think it is. I think it's just like a song lyric, and it's not supposed to be that deep. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's just it's a lyric that's used to symbolize regret, maybe. But maybe I don't know if you disagree. Like, what do you think of when people say this sort of stuff? Like, you know, sometimes wish I'd never been born at all, or other things that sound antinatalist in popular culture or in historical texts and stuff. How do you generally approach those things? I don't know. Let me know in the chat if you. I used to be more like, oh yeah, I found something that, you know, and now I am a bit more hesitant and skeptical. But let me know what you guys think in the chat.
The sentiment that one should never have been born has probably been a recurring idea throughout all of human history. Given the amount of suffering in today's world, and the even greater suffering of the past, one could see how someone in any time period could come to the conclusion that existence itself is bad, and the perpetuation of that existence is bad. If a few societies of the ancient past did seriously agree to be anti-natalist, then obviously their existence would be very short, and would likely be lost to the ashes of history. Today, there are a rare few groups that view procreation as a negative, such as the voluntary human extinction movement, where, according to their views, voluntarily not reproducing would prevent environmental degradation. The Shakers, a Christian sect founded in the 1700s, is entirely celibate. Procreation was forbidden after they joined the society, and members were added through indenture, adoption, or conversion. As you can imagine, their communities eventually declined. As of 2019, there was only one active Shakers community on Earth. On the other side of the Christian spectrum, you have the Quiverful, a group of conservative Christians who shun the use of contraception and basically have as many children as possible. Ironically, the Quiverful movement may have more real-world controversy than the opposite extreme. Professor David Benatar is the leading philosopher on antinatalism. He's a mysterious figure, never showing his face and rarely...
Oh, so this picture that he's showing here, so as I'm sure everyone will know, like Benatar doesn't like show his face. He doesn't reveal like personal details because, you know, I'm sure there's multiple reasons for it, but I think the main reason is that he wants to maintain privacy, right? but there is one place on the internet that you can find a picture of him, which is this here. Very blurry because it's taken on old tech, but it was, I think this was a debate at the University of Cape Town where he's a professor, and it was on fucking what's it called? Affirmative action. I think it was on affirmative action, like quotas, stuff like that, to university in South Africa, which obviously is a very sort of divisive issue there, because they have the history of apartheid, and yeah, there was a debate, and in the debate he'd requested, as he always does with any debate, not to be on the recording, on the visual recording, right? And so they usually just angle the camera so he's cut off. But there's one tiny bit in the debate where the camera shakes and he's caught in the thing. So this is the only visual representation of him online. And I'm actually impressed that this Solar Sands guy was able to find this, because I'm not sure how many people know about this, and it's quite difficult to find. Like, you can find the videos on YouTube easy, but like to go through the whole thing and find the point at which the camera wobbles, it's quite impressive that he's found this.
Giving personal details about his life, especially whether he has children or not. He wants his arguments to be viewed on their own.
So obviously this Solar Sands guy is not listened to literally everything, so I don't blame him for not knowing this, but there are I don't know if there's multiple interviews, so there's definitely one interview where Benatar confirms he doesn't have any kids, which, you know, it's not a surprise.
His fascinating book, Better Never to Have Been, gives a comprehensive argument in favor of his version of antinatalism. Now, I say version because antinatalism is one simple idea that can have several implications depending on what you mean specifically. Antinatalism simply means anti-procreation. It could, but does not automatically mean that the legal right to having a child should be taken away, or that people should be forcibly sterilized. One could have some antinatalist views, but also think abortion, for example, should not always be pursued. There is a big difference between aborting a fetus and choosing not to even conceive in the first place. There is a big difference between determining whether a life is worth starting or whether a life is worth continuing, if you believe a fetus is considered a living human being.
It actually sounds like this guy has done his research, you know, like this is probably so far, one of the most impressive and nuanced overviews of antinatalism that I've seen by someone who I would presume they're not an antinatalist, but I don't know, maybe, I don't know, we'll watch the rest of the thing.
As you will learn, antinatalism does not automatically mean pro-mortalism. The first argument Benatar puts forth is that coming into existence is always a harm. He argues this through something he calls the asymmetry of pleasure and pain. Benatar argues that the presence of pain is bad and the presence of pleasure is good. I would say basically everyone agrees with that. But he also points out that the absence of pain is good, even if that good is not enjoyed by anyone. Whereas the absence of pleasure is not bad unless there is somebody for whom this absence is a deprivation. It can be easier to think of it like a chart with 4 quadrants. One column where someone does exist, and another where someone doesn't exist. As you can see, scenario B is the only scenario where there is guaranteed no bad. If you could know in advance that the child you brought into existence was going to spend a majority of its life in pain, I think most reasonable people would not bring that child into existence. Benatar agrees that if you could know in advance that the child you bring into existence would live a life completely without suffering, then this asymmetry would not apply. However, we all know this is impossible. There is no human life, not even the most wealthy, healthy, and privileged among us, who experience zero suffering. It may be a bitter pill to swallow, but by bringing someone into existence with the knowledge that they will experience suffering, even if you believe small amounts of suffering, you are, sort of, in a weird way, partially responsible for that person's suffering. This is a general outline of his first argument, and there are of course several counters that people have made about the premises that he discusses in his book. This is just a simple introduction. To many of you, this robotic way of approaching pleasure and pain may not be very convincing. But as Benatar argues further, our lives may be considerably more bad than we believe. How good do you think your life is? I want you to seriously consider this question. If you're not in a war-torn or developing country, if you don't have cancer or some other major disease, if you have all your senses and limbs, and if you are not in extreme poverty, you probably think your quality of life is tolerable, if not good, if not very good. However, even for those in privileged positions, you face frequent discomforts and pains.
Yeah, I think there's like two things. There's status quo bias, so people are just so used to um, everyday harms and sufferings, and even sufferings on a larger scale that happen a couple of times in your life or whatever, or less frequently than every day. Um, they're sort of like expected. It's status quo. Like people just, that is just the thing. And so I think then people either habituate to it, or because it's expected, they sort of um, understand it to be necessary, and so don't assign as negative a value to it. They more frame it in the mindset of, let's just, it's just a thing that happens, let's just get through it. So I think there's like status quo bias there. And the other thing is that people sort of they view the quality of their lives in like a relative way, right? So there was a book that you gives an example of this. I think it's all about this. I think it's called, I might be getting this wrong, but I think it's called something like the Spirit Meter or something. I might be getting that wrong on what book it is, but it's a book about economic inequality and the inequality of haves and have-nots. And it talks about how even if, so imagine to have what anyone would consider a decent, comfortable standard of living, you have, there's a certain bar you've got to meet in terms of the resources you have access to and all of this sort of stuff, right? So even if everyone is above this bar, but some people are way above it and some people are just above it, and there's a massive disparity there, but everyone's above that, bar, that disparity will still cause issues and be viewed as some sort of injustice by people, because even though every individual person has what could be considered a decent quality of life, we judge things in a relative way, and so we see other people have even more, and a sense of injustice comes in, jealousy maybe comes in, all of this sort of stuff. And I think it was a woman who wrote this book. She talks about how that causes discord in society, and presumably she goes on to make some sort of policy prescriptions, or I'm not sure. I haven't read the book, but I've heard people speak about it a lot, and that's the sort of understanding I get about what the book's about. And it's really interesting. That's like an example of how we often value things in a relative way. So even if, as he's saying, there may be many bad things in our lives, we view the lives as very good, actually, because we value it relative to the people who are much worse off in the world. So yeah, it's interesting. This is one topic where like Benatar talks a lot about Pollyannism, of like having a positive bias. But this is a topic which I haven't fully made up my mind on yet. Like, I don't know if people have a positive or negative bias, because there are things that make sense in both directions, and I've never actually sat down and read. I don't know if anywhere there's like a discourse between people who. Does anyone know if there's a debate anywhere of someone who thinks that we have a positive bias and something we have a negative, and they debate it? Because I'd like to see that, because I don't know which side I fall on. I actually don't think it has any relevance to antinatalism, really. It might have some relevance when it comes to, practical sort of trying to convince people, but in terms of the philosophy, I don't think it really has any relevance. But JE's just joined. Hey, JE. And Josh Banks is saying that the book, the Spirit Level. Yeah, okay, I got it right then. Yeah, I want to read it. It's just like I've got I don't know if you can see, I think it's too dark, my bookshelf up there, like so many books on that I haven't read yet, like so I can't be like buying any more and adding them to my list. I've got to get through my list already.
How frequently are you not too hot or too cold, but at just the right temperature? How often are you in a comfortable position? How often are you fully rested? How often are you hungry? When the discomfort up here is satisfied, in only a few hours there will be discomfort down here. What about mentally? How often are you completely sound of mind, not thinking about some project you have to complete, some chore, not obsessing over some insult or
Hey Blake, just joined the chat. Nice to see you.
insecurity? Yes, you could say these things are small, but a minor pain is still pain. Most people are often in discomfort. Recently I've been learning about ancient peoples, and time again I'm astonished at the amount of unmitigated suffering they seem to experience on a daily basis. The constant physical labor, the lack of modern medicine, the lack of any sort of climate control, the uncertainty of meals, the constant warfare, raids, and death all seem like hell compared to the luxuries of modern life. I always wondered how they could have possibly bared it all. Well, for one thing, they were ignorant. What I mean is, they didn't know about the advancements we would one day achieve. Sure, they were aware of the better lifestyles of kings and queens, but usually they had no expectation of getting the same treatment. If the person next to you is experiencing the same amount of suffering or worse, then by comparison, your life doesn't seem too bad. They may have dreamed of luxuries similar to our own, but it was probably never taken seriously. People of the far future may look at our lives and wonder how we bared such harms as cancer, discrimination, or poverty.
Yeah, there's a really interesting thing. I think it was Benatar who used this as this example, but I can't remember. It might have been someone else, but I'm pretty sure it was him, where he's trying to make this point about how our lives and our capacities are not as good as we perceive them to be. It's just that we suffer from status quo bias or, relative evaluation and stuff. And he uses the example of actually, no, it was, he was talking about disability here. No, actually, I don't think it was him. There's a book that he was the editor of called Everyday Ethics, or Ethics for Everyday. And it was someone, it might have been him, but there was an essay in that book, because the essays were by many people. And there was an essay in that book talking about disability and how we, what we and what we don't label as a disability. And he was saying that disability is it's a relative term, which is maybe like an obvious thing to say. But the way he the analogy he used, I thought painted this picture really well to convey to people what is actually meant by that. So, if you take just someone who you classically think of as having the label disability, someone using a wheelchair, right? Now, most people walk around, have functioning legs, and they can go up and down stairs and access buildings that way, right? But someone that we view and label as disabled, someone who uses a wheelchair, we install some accommodation for them so that they can access the same things as us. So, including a ramp, for example, to get into a building. But he was saying the only reason we label them as disabled is because they have less capacity in a specific way than the average person. But what if the average person was different, right? So he gives the example of, imagine if we lived in a world where 80%, for example, of the human population could actually fly, and every building, the main way to access it is actually in the center of the building. So if you're looking at the face of a building, it's in the center. So it's actually above the ground. You can't walk into it. They fly into it. Well, the average person who we don't view as disabled, someone who, has the use of both of their legs, as an example, would not be able to access this this entrance, right? Because it's designed for people that can fly. And so accommodations would need to be put in for someone like me, and I'm sure many people watching this chat, right? We can walk, but we can't fly. And so actually in that society, we would be the ones viewed as disabled. And I really don't know why I went off on that tangent, actually, but I found that really interesting. Maybe all you guys are watching me thinking that's fucking obvious, what are you talking about? But I found it really interesting. It kind of goes to what he's talking about here, is that we view ourselves as often the pinnacle. So it's oh, well, this is what good is, right? And anything less is bad. But we don't realize that actually this is bad and that we could be a lot better. Which is a point some groups do make, like transhumanists, for example. Hey Blake, how you doing? And how's everyone doing as well? I see the chat's not that active, but if anyone wants to pop in the chat, just how you doing. But yeah, let's continue.
One way or another, people adapt to their circumstances. Under our modern quality of life, despite all the listed discomforts, you may believe that your life is overall good. However, Benatar argues assessments of our own quality of life may not be accurate at all. The tendency for people to remember pleasant things more frequently and more accurately than unpleasant ones is called the Pollyanna principle. Generally, people who are mentally healthy tend to focus more on the positive than the negative. Nostalgia is one of the most famous examples of this. From an evolutionary standpoint, this makes complete sense. Being optimistic and forward-thinking allows us to get out of bed in the morning and function in our daily lives far better than being downtrodden and thinking about all the bad things that could happen. Optimistic people tend to be more productive and therefore better mates. Pessimism tends not to be naturally selected. One may argue that moderate amounts of suffering in life can be an investment for future pleasures, like how someone exercises to obtain a healthy body, or that experiences of hardship can produce a more resilient mind. And while the instrumentality of suffering certainly exists, this sort of misses the point. Exercising is still a painful process, even if it eventually leads to pleasure. I can also note that life is not only full of suffering, life, especially our lives, require suffering to exist. Birth is usually a very painful process for the mother. Billions of animals must be farmed and killed to feed our populations. The stimulus of pain signals to us when we're injured or when we have to eat. Nature, this concept we often think is full of grace and harmony, is full of brutality that even we can recognize as needlessly cruel. Benatar argues further that there is no duty to procreate. If coming into existence is always a serious harm, there can be no duty, based on potential people, to bring those people into existence. If most people can agree that there is a duty not to procreate if the parents have a serious genetic disease that would likely harm the child, and if coming into existence is always a serious harm, then there may indeed be a duty not to procreate. In a way, our ancestors created what Benatar calls a procreational Ponzi scheme. Each generation benefits, within both families and societies, from creating a succeeding generation, which thereby generates the need for that generation to itself create a new one. It's a Ponzi scheme in that eventually it's going to go bust, and the final people are going to have to pay a price. One more thing I would add is the impossibility of consent. It may seem silly, but there really is no possible way to give birth to a child purely in the interests of the child. We cannot get consent from someone who doesn't exist. If one recognizes this, having a child may seem like an even more uncomfortable responsibility, a reality every parent has to deal with. This also means that not choosing to adopt is an especially horrendous act. Not only are you choosing not to take care of an already existing life, you are unnecessarily bringing in another one. One Indian man tried to sue his parents recently for giving birth to him without his consent. Of course, the lawsuit never really went anywhere. One thing to note is that the lawsuit was not about the man being greedy or depressed. The amount of money he wanted was more symbolic, like a single rupee. He even says his life is good, and that he is close with his parents. He simply believes it is wrong to bring people into the world without their consent. It may surprise you that this man is just one of many. Antinatalism has procured a small community in recent years, or at least, people have become more open about sharing these ideas. David Benatar often talks about how he's received mail, aside from the death threats, from people thanking him for showing they are not completely alone in the world with these thoughts. However, there are also groups that have taken the philosophy of antinatalism in a much more unsavory, but ultimately predictable direction. That's basically what r/antinatalism is. Well, that's not entirely fair. There are a lot of posts that are just kind of amusing memes and some thought-provoking news. However, any time spent on here will show that things can get a bit, well, eye-wateringly edgy. Sometimes they'll use terms like breeders in a derogatory way to refer to people who have children. There's a lot of unhinged rants, and most of the community seems to be more interested in complaining and self-pity rather than discussing the philosophy.
Yeah, I gotta say, if you want to go anywhere to get a an education on antinatalism, the Reddit is maybe not the. I think there are some resources linked there, right, which which may be decent. I don't actually know the Reddit too well, but from what I've seen, there is a lot of whining and memes. Just to catch up on the chat, because a few people have posted. So J.E.'s enjoying the stream. Thanks for watching, J.E. Brant is at work, but struggling with like decisions about work hours and happiness. Now, I get what you mean. Like, I work a full-time job, and like I'd be so much more productive if I could shift my time elsewhere. But there's a meme. Well, I've just been shitting on memes a bit, but like, there's a meme. Actually, maybe I've got it. Maybe I can just get it up and show you guys. Yeah, here it is. Can you see that? So it's like a daughter saying to her father, you know, like she needs some money, saying what for, and like, will you force me into a world that I need to get these arbitrary bits of paper to get, you know, basic, like exchange for basic needs. And it's so true, you know, and it's like, it's like there was literally no one there. Then you created someone, and now they've got to like work a 9 to 5 and all this stuff. And it's, yeah, I get what you mean, Brent. I feel. Hey, Billy. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you. Just been like super busy recently, darting all over the place. And I've been a bit behind on things, which is why I didn't post this Wednesday just gone, because I've just been so busy. I didn't have time to put something together, but got lots of things planned. So there's a lot more stuff coming, but yeah, I've just been like super busy recently. But how have you been doing? And Joshua is saying, according to demographics, many industrialized countries will lose 30% of population in like 15 years due to low birth rates. How do you feel about that? If you want to see a whole documentary on that, see my reactions and everything, 2 live streams ago, I did a whole live stream about this. So there's a documentary called Birth Gap, which is literally on that issue. I think 15 years might be a bit quick, but it could be 15 years in some places. But yeah, if you want to see all about that topic, go to that live stream. It's got Birth Gap in the name. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's quite, I did it quite recently. It's a couple live streams ago. But yeah, let's continue with this video. I might put it on 1.25 just because we've got a lot of videos to get through. Hopefully it won't be too fast.
If you choose to not have children, and if you want to talk about the reasons for not having children, that is fine by me and should be for anyone else. But to shame people who are just expressing joy in their lives is incredibly embarrassing, and you are not doing any favors for your ideas by judging and shaming the vast majority of others who obviously are not familiar with the same ideas and arguments, and are simply going along with their most primal biological drives and legal rights. You'll find that, like any idea, there are bad arguments for antinatalism, and there are also many profoundly bad arguments against antinatalism by people who don't actually understand it or haven't thought it through.
Oh, that's funny, Antinatalist bingo. I think it was during Christmas I did a live stream where we did some bingo with Stop Having Kids videos, but yeah, we'll have to do another bingo stream again. Maybe for this Christmas coming up, I'll have to put one together or something, but yeah, they're quite funny.
Antinatalism is not synonymous with forced sterilization. Something can be viewed as immoral, but not illegal. David Benatar believes, despite all he's argued for, that there should be a legal right to procreate. Antinatalism is also not synonymous with mass killing. Once someone is born, they have their own interests of survival. The antinatalist that wants to preserve human rights would agree that killing someone after their birth is wrong. People also tend to call antinatalists incels. I get that incel has lost all its meaning, but sexual intercourse is more or less irrelevant to antinatalism. Contraceptives exist. People will also ask, if life is so bad, why don't you just kill yourself? This is maybe the most crass way of debunking antinatalists. Wishing to die and wishing to never have been born are 2 very different things. People who are not born do not have any interests in survival. They have no desires. If you had never been born, it's not like you would miss anything. You simply wouldn't care. You couldn't care. As Benatar puts it, although our potential offspring may not regret coming into existence, they certainly would not regret not coming into existence. Killing oneself conflicts with the deeply ingrained instincts in all of us. We are not purely rational creatures, and no matter how much it logically makes sense, if most antinatalists were threatened with a gun, all the emotional self-preservation mechanisms would kick in the heat of the moment. That's how we're programmed. One can recognize that life is full of bad and still want to continue it. Secondly, the very process of death is often quite terrifying. Even the most reliable way of suicide, pointing a gun to your head, can go horribly wrong. And even then, there are plenty of examples of people finding life too painful to continue and ending it. So like, what's your point? People will also say things like, but you are so lucky to be born. The chances of you being born are astronomical. The antinatalist would simply reply, that just makes me astronomically unlucky.
Yeah, I was about to say that's how I view it, like very unlucky.
There are a lot of appeals towards optimism like this that don't really provide any real counter besides, life isn't that bad, you can't see all the good in the world, live, laugh, love, you get it. And you can believe those things, but that doesn't do much to counter the actual arguments. If you are religious, say Christian or Jewish, antinatalism could seriously conflict with your beliefs. As God famously commanded in Genesis 9:7, be fruitful and multiply, spread out across the earth and multiply upon it. However, in the unlikely event the religious choose to ignore God, antinatalism may make even more practical sense. There is always a chance that your child will be sinful enough to be sent to hell, eternal torment. If you don't have children, not only are you sparing them from the suffering of regular life, you could be sparing them from an infinite amount of suffering. There are, of course, arguments against antinatalism that are far more sound. One could argue against the premises Benatar puts forth in his asymmetry argument, or one could talk about how the very thing that makes life seem falsely better, Pollyannism, actually makes life better. Because remembering previous...
Arguing against Pollyannism, I don't think is an argument against antinatalism. Like, I think Pollyannism is sort of like a nice, it's like a bells and whistles sort of thing. Like it's a thing you can add on top of the arguments to give a more holistic understanding of how our psychology interacts with the philosophy. But like, arguing against that, I think is like, it can be interesting in and of itself, but if you're talking about antinatalism, I think it's a bit of a waste of time. So yeah, and the thing he was saying about you could dispute like Benatar's axiological asymmetry. I mean, one thing you could do, and Benatar like even openly says this, is you could, like, it's not a logical argument, right? It's an axiological set of statements so that come together to make the asymmetry. So you could simply just have a different axiological set of statements, right? The issue is, and this is what, you know, Benatar says, and actually if anyone knows meta ethics, and if I remember, I'll link this in the description, he does a good video about this, is like, yeah, Benatar's axiological asymmetry is just one of many axiological sort of points of view you can have pertaining to creating new life. It's just that whichever one you have, you've got to be comfortable with the implications of what that has. And what Benatar, I think, has said, and probably would say, and I think what many people who agree with his axiological asymmetry would say, is that all of the other axiological statements that you could adhere to are just lead to batshit crazy things that don't make sense, and could cause a lot of suffering, which people generally people tend to care about suffering, right? So yeah, and the point is that Benatar's axiological asymmetry is the one that leads to what seem to be the most risk averse and avoidant of suffering and reasonable conclusions, and the least absurd conclusions. But yeah, that's how I view it. So like, when he says you can argue against Benatar's axiological asymmetry, maybe you could, but I think like the better way of putting it is just like, you could just accept different axiological statements, and if you want to do that, you can, but then you've got to be ready to take on the implications of that, right? So yeah, but yeah, Metaethics does a good video on this. I'll try and remember to link it in the description.
As pleasant events and anticipation of better events actually creates a more sound state of mind. One counterargument comes from Sam Harris's discussion with Benatar, arguing that if humans manage to create lives in the far future with far less suffering, consisting of billions of lives, that would outweigh all the suffering of the billions of the previous lives. Of course, this is extremely optimistic, and there is no way of knowing if this would ever be possible.
And also, outweigh from what point of view? Like, how can the suffering of one person be outweighed by the other? They like the benefit of the other. They just both exist in tandem. I think outweighing is maybe the wrong term to use.
I have a counterargument of my own. The lifetime of the universe, even the lifetime of Earth, extends in front of us for billions of years. If we did fully adopt anti-natalism and went extinct, intelligent life could evolve again. This means that intelligent life would likely go through a similar history of civilization development and conflict, creating a similar amount of suffering. In this sense, making ourselves go extinct simply delays the inevitable, and antinatalism would actually generate more suffering by essentially restarting the process from square one. If we continued to exist and progress, we would have all the developments in technology that we could share with this new intelligent life, lessening any further suffering of that species. This argument is also very optimistic, and makes a lot of assumptions and predictions for the future, but I would say it's still a counterpoint that could be considered. It should be obvious by this point that arguments for antinatalism by
That's interesting. So, like, obviously, I've heard what he's saying before by, many people have said this. One famous person who, well, maybe he's not famous, but one person who this is associated with is Magnus Vinding. He talks about this in his, I'm pretty sure it's in his essay, Antinatalism and the Future of Suffering. He talks about that, about how, sentient life can come about elsewhere, other civilizations. We could then, help them in some way, alleviate their suffering. And what was I going to say? Can't remember what I was going to say, but yeah, I think out of what was it? I can't remember, but yeah, out of all of the oh, this is what I was going to say. It's interesting he says that because that point is not actually an argument against the philosophy. So this guy making the video may actually agree with the philosophy because he hasn't actually made any arguments against the philosophy. That is more of a sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Oh. Yeah, that's more of a consideration that a consideration for the practical outcomes for if the philosophy was fully adopted by people, which it never will be, in my view. But yeah, so it's more of like a practical consideration. And I think out of all of the points someone could make to an antinatalist, I think, these type of points are the best types, and the most convincing. But it's an interesting one. Thanks, JE. And Billy's asking, are you against sentient life anywhere it exists? Well, it depends what you mean by the question, right? Like, if you say against sentient life, like, obviously, I'm against sentient life. Sorry, I'm sentient life. You are sentient life. Typing that. Like, I'm not against you. I'm not against me. If there's sentient life already in existence, I'm not against that life. I think any sentient beings in existence should be cared for, their suffering alleviated, all of this sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm against sentient life coming into existence. So if by your question you mean, am I opposed to sentient life coming into existence anywhere? Yeah, I think it would be better if sentient life didn't come into existence anywhere in the universe. So yeah, if that's what you meant by the question, then yes. But if you meant the former thing, no, I'm not against like sentient life who already exists. I think that sentient life should be, helped and stuff. And Nadia's joined the chat. Hey, Nadia.
People who understand and have thought about the subject are arguments that can't simply be dismissed easily. They may be seen as counterintuitive or deeply uncomfortable, but that alone does not make them wrong. Antinatalism also solves a few interesting population ethics problems. For example, the mere addition paradox, or the repugnant conclusion. The repugnant conclusion basically goes like this. Let's say that we agree with the principle that the most desirable outcome is one that maximizes the total positive quality of life. I believe many hold this principle already. Let's say that graph A represents a world with 1 billion people in it, with a very high quality of life. The x-axis is the size of the population, and the y-axis is the quality of life. This means the area inside is the total quality of life. Now, let's add graph A+, which has a larger population but a segment with a slightly lower average quality of life. They still live exceptionally well, but it's just slightly lower. As you can see, the area of total quality of life is larger, which means more people have a high quality of life. Now, let's add population B-, which has the same amount of people and the same area of total quality of life, but reorganized. If we keep following this line of logic, we eventually reach population Z, which has a large amount of people with a quality of life which is barely positive, barely worth living. And yet, by our reasoning, the total area of quality of life is better than the original A population simply because there are more people. This is the repugnant conclusion. If you backtrack and insist on a different principle, that what matters is average well-being and not total, and that A+ is worse than A because of additional slightly less well-off...
Yeah, this sort of stuff that Parfit came up with, just like, it makes no sense to me, because it's creating people for the benefit of... It's like putting well-being and pleasure above people. So like people serve pleasure and well-being rather than the other way around. Like it's creating people for the benefit of pleasure and well-being, but you should be, in my view, creating pleasure and well-being for the benefit of people, which I think would be the anti-natalist point, right? Like there's no point creating more people if we have the ability to nurture and culture positive experience and meaning and all this stuff for people. You know, do it for the people who already exist. There's no point creating someone who doesn't need it, who wouldn't need it in the first place if they didn't exist.
People bringing down the average, then that also means you're saying it's bad to bring happy people into existence, even when doing so hurts no one. Antinatalism solves this problem by cheating.
Geren or Jeren, I'm not sure how you pronounce your name, but asks, would you oppose the creation of an AGI with self-awareness? If anyone doesn't know what AGI is, it's artificial general intelligence. So what people generally mean, and I think what Jeren or Geren is getting at is like an AGI that would be sentient, I think is what you're getting at. I've actually answered that question before. If you go to, there's a playlist, if you go to playlists on my channel, and there's a playlist that says, it's called like My Appearances Elsewhere or something like that. And there's an interview I did for, I think it's called Discourse ZA, but the host is called Bronwyn. And yeah, in that interview, she asks me that question, so you can go and watch that interview, because I realized like we're like an hour in and we're still on the first video, so I want to like get through them.
Sort of. Because it says no lives are worth living. You'll find that if you apply antinatalism to ethics, a lot of ideas are flipped on their heads. This is why I find it kind of fascinating. If we were to take antinatalism seriously, then the end result would ultimately be self-extinction. This is what David Benatar argues for. Instantaneous extinction would certainly be best, but more realistically, phased extinction, where people give birth to smaller and smaller generations, would also work. Benatar acknowledges that the final people would suffer quite a lot, without any access to the hundreds of systems that rely on people operating them. If we planned this phased extinction thoroughly, the final people's suffering could be reduced by storing food and medicine beforehand, but they will always have that lingering thought that after they die, humanity has no future. But if we're talking about suffering, the suffering of the last people may pale in comparison to the collected suffering of the potential thousands of generations in the future. It's even more sobering when you consider the estimated amount of people who have ever lived. 107 billion people, and all of their suffering. How many more billions of future people suffering can one possibly imagine if we manage to colonize other planets? You may have noticed that there is...
Yeah, colonizing other planets would just be such a bad idea in my view.
A very big problem that...
It would just be like, I think Pandora's box has already been opened up on Earth, but we would then be opening up another one, and it's just like so much potential to go bad.
brings this line of thinking squarely into theoretical territory. Antinatalism is logistically absurd. There is no way you are going to convince everyone on Earth not to procreate. Rational arguments won't matter. There are billions of people on this Earth, and many of them don't think in this cold, rational way. If such a social stigma was made, even in the most extreme, there would be thousands that would still procreate in secret. Extinction, or phased extinction by choice, isn't happening. And I bet that even the most die-hard anti-natalist understands that. That's why I believe antinatalism is more useful as a philosophy than as a serious ideology. It asks questions that most people wouldn't dare to seriously consider. It's one of the most devilish devil's advocates there is. Why should having children always be seen as inherently good? Why do we tend to value life and continuing life as always good for the individual? Like I said, if you look at r/antinatalism, you'll find a lot of rants and memes about life and suffering, and not much about discussing the actual philosophy or ethics. These people are clearly unhappy, and while antinatalism is what they say they advocate for, maybe there's more to these posts than meets the eye. I believe that behind antinatalism are a lot more useful sentiments that should be given far more consideration than is usually. I think what many antinatalists could more realistically achieve is better parenting and more concern for the quality of life rather than the quantity of it. Bringing a child into this world is a big responsibility. Yes, that's not a new idea, but should it be emphasized even more? Should every parent ask themselves these questions before having a child? What quality of life do I expect this child to have? Will I be able to adequately provide for that child? Will I be able to give this child the same love and care if they do not grow up to be what I expect of them? Do I have to have a child that is my biological offspring?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'll wait until the video's finished to say anything else.
The resources I have be shared with an adopted child. How will I react if my child feels that life is too painful for them and they want to end it? Considering all of this, there's a lot more to the question, do more lives really need to be brought into existence than it seems? Antinatalism asks this question seriously, and that is why it is valuable. Questioning everything is an essential part of critical thinking. Even ideas many of us have accepted as truth, even those at the very foundation of our programming.
So that's the end of that video. I actually think that was probably the best video on antinatalism, like encapsulating the whole thing for a popular audience that I've seen. That was like a really good, he'd obviously done his research, and my takeaway from it was that I'm not actually convinced he disagrees with it, because all of the points he made against it were practical ones about how this is just never going to come to fruition, all this sort of stuff. But he was saying that the philosophy itself actually has a lot of valuable things to say, and that even though, you know, it's not going to be something that we're going to be able to convince everyone about, which I think is true, like we're just not going to be able to, right? It still provides food for thought to the average person that makes them consider things that they wouldn't otherwise. And even if people don't buy into it 100%, it can still help shift the Overton window towards full antinatalism, but not get there, but for the better, which I agree with. Like, I don't think we're going to be able to convince everyone, all this sort of stuff, but we can push things in a certain direction, which will improve the state of affairs we find ourselves in. So I agree with him there. It would be interesting actually to be able to talk to him and ask what his personal take is, because he said this won't be able to, he made the point that it's unfeasible that this is going to be adopted on a wide scale and have these big changes, but that doesn't say anything about whether an individual person can take it on board and it change their behaviors. So it'd be interesting to see if it changed his behaviors at all, and his personal views. Yeah, I wonder if there's a way to actually talk to this guy. I might, yeah, he's got a Twitter. I might message him on Twitter. We'll see. Anyway, cool. So that was the first video. That was one of the longer ones. Let's actually do like a few. So this is the playlist I put together. Let's actually, yeah, let's actually do some shorter ones. So open link. So I'm actually not going to do them in, or I might reorder actually, because this one's another long one, so I might shift that back a bit. Why is that not shifting? There we go. So I might shift that down a bit, so we've got a few shorter ones we can knock off. Okay, cool. Let's see if anyone's saying anything in the chat. So, okay, cool. Cool. Yeah, let's get through a few shorter ones so we get a few more videos under the belt, because that was quite a long one. So this is by a channel called Sophie, I guess is how you pronounce it. But basically he doesn't really do them anymore. He does more talking to camera videos now, but he used to do a lot of videos where they were like animated and stuff. So I thought we'd watch a couple of those. So yeah, and what I'll do is at the end of this, all of the videos we watch, I will link them all, so you can access them yourselves.
There are multiple arguments for anti-natalism, and you can read all of them on Wikipedia. The main reason for me is the following. 1. Consent is not possible in procreation. No one can dispute this. We cannot ask babies whether they want to be born or not. 2. There is pain in life. There cannot be any dispute over this one either. Everyone will experience at least a moment of pain in his or her entire life. 3. We do not harm non-existent babies by not creating them. Therefore, it is clear that procreation is wrong. It is imposing life on someone without his or her consent. It is forcing them into a situation in which they will have to go through pains, not to mention the manipulation by raising and educating them. And we could avoid all of this simply by not having them, which does not bring any harm to them. It is baffling that this simple argument goes over people's heads. This shows that nature, in this case, has such a strong grip that it pulverizes our logic, understanding, and morality, to the extent that we justify such a horrific crime.
Oh right. Oh, that was the whole video. That was super quick. Yeah, let's watch another one of his. So yeah, these animated ones by Sophie are like very punchy, very quick, like nice animations. But yeah, he stopped doing them because they were very like time and labor intensive. But yeah, let's get a few under our belt.
The most common response to my argument from the previous video is the fact that there are also pleasures in this world. The argument I provided never assumed otherwise, so this fact does not affect it in any way. Nevertheless, let us make it clear through an example. Imagine I come to your door and show you a device I made. You push a button, and this impregnates the device, and after some time a puppy is born to live with you. The puppy will live for 1 year and then dies. During this time, it will enjoy its life, and all its needs are satisfied. However, there is a side effect to this device. For a handful of times during its life, the puppy will experience short but painful electrical shocks. The question is, will you push the button? My answer, no. Because basically I have two choices. 1. I push the button and force a puppy into life. It did not ask to be born. Now it has to go through the pleasures and painful electrical shocks, and after a year it will die. Or I simply choose not to do it. I will not do this to a dog. I will not do this to a human being. Why would I ever do this to my own child?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Like, yeah, to be honest, I don't really have much commentary on this video. Like, it's just, he's encapsulating basically the consent argument, right? And does it very well, good imagery. So I think these are good, punchy short videos that you can send to people who are interested in this topic or you want to make the point to. It's really good that these are like high quality, succinct, short videos, because often people nowadays, they don't want to watch like an hour-long thing. So you can send them like a very punchy, video, which, I've not really done that in the videos I've made. So that's a shortfall of mine. But this guy, he's made some good ones. So, and there's a whole range of ones that he's done. I've got a few others smattered through the playlist, but we're going to watch something else now. But yeah, definitely check out this guy's channel. Again, I'll link all of this in the description. So this next one is, okay, there's not a description. I forget the which philosopher this is, but yeah, so this is a speech that why is that so far up? So yeah, this is a speech that a guy made in South America about antinatalism to like a massive audience, I think. It's quite short, but fuck, his name is escaping me now. But yeah, let's watch. Oh, hang on. That's kind of annoying that the subtitles are down there. I'll have to zoom it down so you can see them.
Muchachitos de Colombia, ustedes han tenido la mala suerte de nacer y en el país más loco del planeta. No le sigan la corriente, no se dejen arrastrar por su locura. Pues si bien la locura ayuda a sobrellevar la carga de la vida, también puede sumarse a la desdicha. El cielo y la felicidad no existen. Esos son cuentos de sus papás para justificar el crimen de haberlos traído a este mundo. Lo que existe es la realidad, la dura realidad, este matadero al que vinimos a morir, cuando no es que a matar y a comernos de paso a los animales, nuestro prójimo.
Oh, that's interesting. I have watched this, but ages ago, so I actually forget what was the contents. But yeah, it's interesting. He also talks about animals as well.
En consecuencia, no se reproduzcan, no hagan con otros lo que hicieron con ustedes. No paguen en la misma moneda el mal con el mal, que imponer la vida es el crimen máximo. Dejen tranquilo al que no existe y está pidiendo venir en la paz de la nada. Total, a esa es a la que tenemos que volver todos. ¿Para qué entonces tanto rodeo? La patria que les cupo en suerte, que nos cupo en suerte, es un país en bancarrota, en desbandada. Unas pobres ruinas de lo poco que antes fue. Miles de secuestrados, miles y miles de asesinados, millones de desempleados, millones de exiliados, millones de desplazados, el campo en ruinas, la industria en ruinas, la justicia en ruinas, el porvenir cerrado. Eso es lo que les tocó a ustedes. Los compadezco. Les fue peor que a mí.
Somos una pareja.
Oh, that's annoying. So we didn't get the whole... It looked like it was going to continue. Damn. I need to find the full version of that. Yeah, so this next one... so this one is Fernando Vallejo. Okay, so he interviews a pregnant couple. How can you bring a child into this disastrous world? So I think this may be the same guy. It is in Colombia as well. So it's kind of annoying again. Oh, you know what I may do? So bring it down here so you can see. And then I'm actually going to move myself. I'm going to move myself up here just for a minute and make me really small so that you can see the subtitles. So that should be better. Yeah, I'm assuming if the guy in this is Fernando Vallejo, then the guy in the previous one must have been as well.
Joven, vivimos en Colombia, en Bogotá, y vamos a tener un hijo en 3 meses. ¿Qué piensa usted al respecto?
Yeah, that looks like the same guy, doesn't it? So it must be. Whoa, he's going for the jugular with the criminals.
¿Cómo pueden traer un hijo a este desastre del país, este desastre del planeta? Es un crimen traer hijos a este mundo. Nadie tiene el derecho a reproducirse. Moralmente, para mí es inaceptable toda reproducción. ¿Usted para qué quiere tener un hijo? ¿Qué le va a dar a usted? ¿Cree que la va a sostener cuando esté viejo?
No, yo quería que él experimentara también la vida, también hizo.
¿Cuál es usted primero que todo? No la experimentó.
God, like, now I'm going off the translation here, so I don't know if these subtitles are exactly correct, but what she just said there, let's just go back, right? So she wants her baby to experience life. Like, what does that mean? That's like really vague. And my suffering. So you're creating someone so they can not only experience suffering, which itself is sadistic, but so that they can experience your suffering. That's a fucking ego trip and a half, innit? And a sadistic ego trip at that. Crazy that someone can say that about someone they purport to care about.
¿Cuál es usted primero que todo? No la experimentó porque usted está muy jovencito, usted no ha envejecido, usted no la ha visto morir.
That's a really good point that often people don't talk about enough, right? Is that by definition, anyone who can still reproduce of reproductive age still has a significant amount of their life to go. They haven't experienced all of life, so they don't even understand what they're putting on someone else. I mean, first of all, they haven't lived all of their own life, but they're imposing a different life on someone else. So, like, to me, it's bizarre. Like, yeah.
Dice la gente en torno suyo, usted no ha recogido un solo perro abandonado, usted no ha hecho una obra de caridad en su vida o ha hecho muchas. Usted entonces no puede hablar. Usted no tiene autoridad moral para hablar.
Hay una cosa que es la vida que está, digamos que está huyendo por continuarse.
La vida que llama la vida. Y no tiene más vida una vaca que está en un matadero que usted se está comiendo y que están acuchillando que el hijo suyo que tiene ahí que no es nada.
Fuck, he's going for it, isn't he? I assume, given the way he's talking, he's vegan as well, which I really appreciate. Like, he's holding these people, you know, holding to account kind of sounds cringy, but like, it's true. He's making them face the consequences of their actions twofold. One, of reproduction, but also of the fact that they're going to be creating a meat eater or a non-vegan, right? Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see what this couple thought about after this interaction.
Que tiene, cuando es un gusano.
El ser humano, usted tiene la capacidad también de reducir el sufrimiento. O sea, no solamente de producir.
Y yo lo hago. Quiero evitar el dolor y reducirlo lo que puedo.
¿Por qué?
Porque me nace del corazón.
Para nosotros tener ese hijo igual representa un poco algo que no es tan fácil de discernir ni de explicar. Que igual el hecho de que otra persona surja en esas condiciones en las que nosotros le estamos presentando a nuestro hijo es valedero, porque esa persona también puede cumplir ese mismo cometido que está haciendo usted.
O sea que el niño tuyo lo vas a educar para que recoja perros abandonados y para que los esté.
Yeah, it's like, okay, first of all, good luck with that. Second of all, like, why don't you just do that directly?
No exactamente, pero para que sea una buena persona, sí. Sí.
Bueno, hay que ver que ser buena persona.
¿Usted es buena persona?
No, yo no sé, eso es lo que voy viviendo hasta que se acabe esto como puedo.
¿Y por qué sigue ahí insistiendo?
Vivir es muy difícil y morirse también. Las dos cosas son muy difíciles. Entonces a mí me da lo mismo una que otra. También en vez de estos niñitos podríamos tener ahí perritos, o terneritos, o ratoncitos, y sentiría la misma compasión por ellos y la misma misericordia. O caballitos.
Oh, actually, I've just thought this has music. This has music in the background. Oh, that's so annoying. This might get this flagged. Fuck's sake. Yeah, I mean, we've listened to most of the music now anyway, so if it's gonna get flagged, it's gonna get flagged.
Sí, me genera ternura y compasión. Pobrecito lo que les espera. ¿Cuántos de estos van a ser vendedores ambulantes, cuchilleros, sicarios, paramilitares? Esperemos que ninguno de estos llegue a la presidencia de la República. Hacer el mal por lo alto.
Okay, I'm just going to mute it from now on. But yeah, Fernando Vallejo. So, Colombia. And it said, antinatalist writer, filmmaker, and philosopher. I wonder what films he's made. That's interesting. From Colombia. Yeah. Cool. Let me just open a notepad because I just need to note down a few things of and who was the person? Oh yeah, Solar Sands. I was going to message. Cool. Cool. Well, that was an interesting one. I'm not sure I've actually seen that one before. I think that video I've had noted down to watch for ages, but never got round to it. This next one's going to be really interesting. I haven't watched this one before, but I've had people recommend it to me. I've been looking forward to it for ages. So that last one with Fernando Vallejo, like talking to that expectant couple, that was that's sort of like you know what it is? It's like it's watching an antinatalist talk to people who are going to reproduce in the way that every antinatalist kind of does want to, but either doesn't think it's probably going to produce the best outcomes or is, you know, too shy or whatever. But it's quite like, what's it called? Validating or cathartic or whatever the word is to watch someone else do it. Yeah. Is that... Okay, let me just bring myself up a bit. There. Cool, let's just catch up on the chat quickly before we watch this one. So, Billy is asking if I'm vegetarian. No, I'm not. I'm vegan. I think, yeah. I mean, if you have any more questions, go for it. But I think vegetarianism, in my view, is completely morally bankrupt. Same as you know, eating meat. Yeah, let's see. So, Lawrence, if one of your friends decided to have a biological child at this point, knowing your beliefs and reasoning, would you still be friends with them given their ethical crime? Well, I'm getting to that point, right, where, as in terms of age, where, like, most of my friends are not antinatalist. And, yeah, getting to the age where people are going to start having kids, right? No, I wouldn't, like, stop being friends with them. It's a difficult one, right? I think it's different people are going to take it different ways, but like, yeah, they know my opinion, and people are going to be people. Like, yeah, I don't really know what else much to say, really. Like, sometimes people do stuff that you really disagree with, even though they know, you know, but they know, like, your opinion, but it's just like the conditioning they've gone through, the evolutionary urges they've got to be fighting. Like, they know not what they do, I guess is how I approach it. I'm going to sneeze again. Yeah, I guess that's the way I approach it. Like, they know not what they do. And yeah, so I don't agree with it. I think it's sad, but it is what it is. I'm not going to burn every bridge that I have with people because of it. Yeah, cool. And hey, Massilia's here. Hey, Massilia, hope you're doing well. So Billy asks, do you think love is a neurochemical con job that is designed for us to make more humans? Well, I don't think it's a con job, because I think con job implies there was some sort of creator behind it. I think it is simply, I think it is at base a neurochemical reaction that causes us to have certain subjective feelings. And I think it's just something that came about through evolution. It has evolutionary benefits for bonding, for procreation from an evolutionary point of view, because obviously that's the whole point of evolution, is to get, well, evolution is fueled by procreation, and so it's going to select for things that lead to more procreation, right? So yeah, it's just a byproduct of evolution, and I think it's hard to talk about it in a moral way because evolution isn't a moral actor. It's just this blind process. But yeah. Anyway, I think you probably get my point of view. It's an unfortunate thing that's come around. Not because I don't hate on the actual experience. I think it's a nice experience when you're experiencing it. It leads to very beautiful things once you exist and you're here, but it also leads to very bad things. I think it blinds people a lot. It also leads people to commit acts which are, very bad. But yeah, it has a good side and it has a bad side. I think the bad side outweighs the good side. But we're here now. It's something we experience. We often can't help it. And so we might as well, in a responsible way, lean into the good side and try and avoid the bad side. Cool. Okay, let's watch the next one. So this is an interesting one. So there's this guy called Daniel Mackler, who I believe he's like a therapist, psychologist type person, and seems quite intelligent guy. I've seen some of his stuff, but he did a video. He seems quite sympathetic to antinatalism, and he did a video on humanity, primary addiction, having children, and he talks about it from a therapist, psychologist, or psychiatrist. I'm not actually sure the difference point of view. So I thought it'd be. I can't remember if I added this or so. I think someone else recommended it actually.
Human beings have the potential to have all sorts of addictions. But from what I have observed, the most common addiction that people have is to having children. Now, I recognize that by conventional standards, this is an extremely strange, even offensive thing to say. So I'm going to try to express, well, a little bit more clearly how I came to this conclusion. Well, for starters, it came to me understanding what is an addiction. What purpose does an addiction serve? Let's say things that are overtly considered addictions, like to certain drugs or to alcohol. It helps people numb their feelings. It keeps people distracted from their deeper pain. It keeps people distracted from their deeper purpose.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like during all of the lockdowns and stuff, I listened to a lot of podcasts and content and interviews and stuff on drugs, legal drugs, all of this sort of stuff. And one of the biggest things I took away from it is that, like, anyone who's educated on drugs and addiction, like, basically all of them say that the major driving force for addiction is people coping with trauma. And yeah, this is what he's saying here. It's interesting. I mean, it's sad, but yeah, it's interesting.
They're engaging in a sort of dishonest relationship with something out there. In this first case, like a certain substance like alcohol or drugs, that they're using this outside thing to avoid who they really are, to avoid engaging more deeply on their purpose. It's a way to deal with the upwelling pain of the traumas that they have suffered, the feelings of abandonment and rage and sorrow and frustration, hurt, loss, confusion. It's kind of a way to numb out and blot out one's feelings. Well, now thinking about having children, what I started realizing is so many people I saw, most in fact, were having children for this very purpose. But to get into the deeper psychology of having children, what I have seen that really strikes me as one of the key reasons why having children is an addiction for most people, it's what is their relationship with their child. From what I've seen, most people, this is normal human psychology, they create that child and they mold that child and they view that child as an object, not as a subject. Yeah, they can say, oh, I'm here to love my child and I love my child more than anything and I'm here to give everything to my child and sacrifice everything for my child in my own life so my child can grow. But what I've seen underneath it is that most parents, the far majority, far majority, are actually taking much more from their child. They're using that child to plug up all sorts of things inside of themselves. They're, in a way, like parasites off of that child, drinking that child's psychic blood, making that child love them first. Their love for that child is very conditional. They love the massive focus, the dependency that their child has on them. It gives them a purpose.
Yeah, this is something obviously he's going to be much more informed because he understands all the theory and stuff behind it, and he's actually worked in the context of working with these sort of people in a clinical setting. But yeah, I've definitely noticed this. I'm sure everyone's noticed this. Like, yeah, the way people, like, just on a very fundamental level, when you're actually creating someone, people say they create someone out of love, but you can't be doing it for them because they weren't there to want. So if you're doing it for them, it must be something to their benefit, something they want, you know, something that helps them. But creating someone does none of that. It's only self-serving, right? So yeah, it's sort of like, when you say it's done out of love, is it done out of the love you have for them, or is it done because you want to gain something from the connection? Maybe you want to gain their love. He's obviously way more informed on it than me, but it's such an interesting topic, which I think obviously it isn't strictly an antinatalist point, but it's something that is very interesting to observe from an antinatalist perspective.
It makes them feel important. It makes them feel whole. It makes up for all the things that they feel they're lacking inside of themselves. I know so many people who have such a profound lack of deeper purpose and meaning in their life. And then they suddenly, almost mysteriously and magically find it when they have a child, or 2 children, or 3 children. And the world applauds them for this. Oh, they have a purpose. Now you have a role. And it's a very long role.
This is the procreational Ponzi scheme that that Benatar was talking about.
In the best sense of the word, it's a role that lasts for the rest of your life to one degree or other, or at the minimum, maybe 18 or 20 years. But I know a lot of parents say, well, it's a role that they take really seriously for 2, 3, 4, 5 years until their child is old enough to go away to school. And then they often want to have another one. Oh, let's have another one, because they start feeling like, uh-oh, I can't control this child as much. It doesn't distract my attention enough. This child now is becoming more independent and goes somewhere for many hours of the day, or has friends, or doesn't need me as much. I think for a lot of parents, a big part of the addiction to their children is that their child needs them. It makes them feel wanted, seen.
That's really big. Like, people have a deep sense of being wanted or needed, and having something or someone to nurture and build and pay attention to. People find it in many different places. But one of the ways that you can just produce basically on demand, that is very, it's a very, what's it called? Like, it lasts for a long time, is creating someone, right?
It makes them feel valid and heard. That's part of why it's so addicting to so many people.
And sorry, there's a few new people in the chat. So hey, Final Fantasy and Almari, Revan and Lo and Kai as well. I think that's, and Abductology. I think those are all the new people. So hey to everyone.
And then there's the part of what makes it such a popular addiction in society. And it actually speaks to other addictions also. There are addictions that are less socially acceptable, and then there are addictions that are more socially acceptable. So, for instance, an addiction to crystal meth or heroin, that's generally considered very socially unacceptable addiction. And then there's socially more acceptable addictions. For instance, alcohol. Alcohol is considered, especially if it's mild alcoholism, is considered more or less socially acceptable. Oh yes, after dinner drinks, before dinner drinks, cocktails, going out and drinking with the friends, getting a little drunk here and there. It's considered okay. It serves the purpose of an addiction. But often it's considered pretty socially acceptable unless someone goes way too far, gets caught, gets arrested, things like that. Then it starts drifting into socially unacceptable. But alcohol, it's legal even. And often there's even criticism, why don't you drink? But then there's having children. Talk about a socially really acceptable addiction. The opposite being if you don't have children. Especially, I feel bad more for women being criticized. Why don't you have children? You're not a real woman if you don't have children. And then I think of the extreme cases of people who are having 5, 10, 15 children. Or what's that show about the Dugars, that family? How many kids do they have? 20 children. And people say, oh, it's so wonderful. And then I even see it in the news nowadays. Now, in our massively overpopulated world, where humans are overtaking nature, the massive number of people, the resources that we use in the world is destroying the natural habitat of our planet at such a massive rate. And yet still on the news, I hear, oh, someone had a 12th child, and the newscaster says, isn't that just wonderful? And it's like, wonderful. And then it's like, oh, you realize that having children really is a very socially accepted thing. And what more wonderful way to have an addiction where you get positive feedback for it. Sometimes you even get money for it. I mean, a lot of governments in the world give people more money when they have children, more time off, more freedom. You don't have to work. You don't have to go out and stress and participate in the world. You're doing a service to society is the attitude. So that really puts, if you agree with my idea that having children is an addiction, that puts it in the really positive category. So for people who can use having children in an addictive way, aka the normal way to have children, it's like you win the contest because you get to meet your addictive needs and get rewarded for it. But you don't really win, because deep down, the ones who suffer as the result of this, aside from the world at large, is the children. And when you look at how many...
that's interesting. Now he is making a kind of anti-natalist point.
Screwed up people there are in the world. You could say to one degree or other, pretty much everybody is screwed up, but there's a lot of people who have really extreme problems. And it doesn't take a lot of questioning. It doesn't take a lot of observation to figure out that the reason that they're screwed up is because of the ways in which they were raised. Their basic relationship with their parents is what screwed them up. It's that their parents treated them as an addictive object. Didn't love them properly, didn't nurture them properly, didn't raise them properly. That child was there to be a part of that parent's addiction, and the one who suffered as the result of it was the child. The child got screwed up in so many ways.
Almari's just saying in the chat that he hasn't, or they haven't seen this one. Need to check out the guy more. Yeah, so I'll put a link in all of the videos that we've seen in this stream. I'll put a link in the description after we finished.
And then society says, oh, you're all screwed up in all these ways, but you can kind of make up for it by passing on this addiction. You can now have the addiction. Once you have the power, once you become a physiological adult who can procreate, you can have the addiction of your own and have your own children. In a way, you can balance the scales of your own rotten childhood by making someone else have a rotten childhood, and you can be addicted to them as long as you need them. And guess what? Even in our society, if you don't need this child anymore, if you want to have another child, you can actually even get rid of your child. You can move on from this addiction. You can put the child in foster care, put them up for adoption, treat them as a person of no worth. More overtly, even though the underlying message of how you treated them was always that way. And so, This is just part of what goes into me thinking of the primary addiction of our world. The primary opiate of the masses is having children. And I wouldn't suspect that as time goes on, our world is going to figure that out more and more.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Yeah, I've often thought that way about the way people view having kids. So, okay, just very quickly now, I really need a wee. So I'm going to go have one, but I'm going to let this video play whilst I'm gone. And it's around, it's just over a minute, so I'll be back in that time. But yeah, I'm just going to leave this to play while I'm away. So, but I'll just say hey to Tad, who's just joined. And J.E.'s just saying, apparently Daniel Mackler has a great video on trauma and mental health as well. I'll have to check that out sometime, but I will be right back. I'm just going to play this video for you. Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, I'll be right back.
Sometimes when I read discussions on anti-natalism and arguments against it, I see that everything seems to have been lost under philosophical jargons. When they talk about the impossibility of getting consent from an unborn child, they talk about the impossibility of any objection from the same child. When they talk about the asymmetry of pain and pleasure, they talk about their own scale of pain and pleasure and different weighting factors. Of course, we can debate on all of these issues, but I personally am not up for it. I do not like debates. I'm not an anti-natalist because of a philosophical argument, and I won't become a natalist because of a technical flaw in my argument. I am an anti-natalist because I take the full responsibility of bringing someone into this world. I am an anti-natalist because the first moments my child experiences a pain, which she will definitely do, I won't be able to forgive myself. To not think that I am the reason she is. That I forced this situation on her without her asking for my own sake when I could have easily walked away.
There is another reason why kids appear so fascinating to us. It's the hormones. It's not only the human kid.
I didn't make it back in time. Okay, cool. We'll get back to this video, but yeah, you just watched that. What was it called? Antinatalism Beyond Arguments. Can't remember what that one's about, but I hope it was good. Yeah, and hey, Nadia's here. Hey, Nadia. And Restore and Upscale is here. Says, have you ever seen Mark Antinatalist videos? The name rings a bell. So I might have, but I can't remember. And yeah, we'll get back to this guy, but I just wanted to go back to this one. So this one is by Théophile Diderot, I think is how you say his name. He's Belgian, I think. And yeah, he gave a speech. I don't know where the speech was. Maybe we'll see. But yeah, let's watch this one. I'm excited for this one. And I think there will be subtitles, so I'll try and position myself so I don't cover them. So it was in Berlin in 2017. So I think this might have been a sort of thing where, like, there's a time when anyone can go up and they have like 5-minute slots. So that might have been it.
I will speak in the name of the unborn. So
Okay, and it's in English. Cool. Okay, nice. And Revan is also saying, have you seen Rita McLeod's on YouTube? No, I have not. I'm not sure I've heard of them. If there are any people or videos and stuff you want me to see, send them to me either on Twitter or by email, and both of the links of those are in the description, so you can find them there, and I'll check them out. But yeah, to do it like ad hoc on stream now when we've already got the playlist, I won't do it now. But yeah, send them to me via email or Twitter, and I'll take a look. And you know, if there's something in those videos that's worth responding to, I'll either do like a video or another live stream or something like that.
Je vais parler au nom des non-nés.
durant ce week-end.
Oh, okay, hang on a minute. Okay, so it's going to be in French. So let me just move me around. I'll go up here. Oh, fuck's sake. Sorry about that. Cool. Okay, so I've moved myself up top. And what I'm going to do is, because we have to read, I'm actually going to go a bit slow and bring it down. And okay, yeah, you can see all of that.
Durant ce week-end, l'on prouvait à suffisance. Nous vivons dans un monde de bourreaux, de victimes, d'injustices, d'inégalités, de viols, de violences et de souffrances sociétales sans nom.
Okay, maybe we can watch it at normal speed because it's fine.
Pour ne rien dire des maladies, catastrophes naturelles, cancers et autres dépressions qui dévastent quotidiennement notre malheureuse humanité. Qu'en est-il dès lors de l'intérêt supérieur de l'enfant que nos sociétés prétendent désormais...
Okay, hang on, actually, no. We're coming back to 0.75 because it's too quick for me. I'm quite a slow reader.
Respecté. L'intérêt supérieur de l'enfant est de toute évidence de ne pas voir le jour dans un monde aussi tragiquement douloureux que le nôtre. Je propose donc d'inscrire dans notre charte pour le XXIe siècle que le premier droit de l'homme devrait être de ne pas naître. Si par malheur ce premier droit se trouve bafoué, le second droit de l'homme devrait être d'avoir des parents de qualité, non seulement aimants et non violents, mais aussi compétents sur le plan éducatif. À cet effet, une formation scolaire à la parentalité serait la bienvenue dans le cadre des cours.
So that's so true. I think getting into like parental licenses and stuff is maybe a bit like murky and stuff, but I definitely think there should be mandatory courses for anyone who is going to reproduce. There should be some mandatory course they have to do, and if they don't do it, you know, maybe there's a fine or something like that. I don't know, or I'm not sure what the actual practical implementation would be, but there should definitely be some mandatory course because like people need to learn basic skills when they're caring for someone else. Like if you think about it, if you're a carer, like you have to go and care for someone as a professional job, you have to have qualifications. But like people can just fart out a kid and like not have to have any qualifications, and like, yeah. So there should definitely be some sort of mandatory course where people learn basic life skills like finance, conflict resolution, communication skills, nutrition, all of this sort of stuff.
À l'école secondaire. Il serait indispensable aussi que chacun se pose cette question avant de procréer. Mon enfant sera-t-il heureux de m'avoir comme parent? Au vu du nombre incalculable d'individus stupides ou carrément malveillants qui peuvent...
Oh, people are clapping at that as well. That's interesting. It's cool that Theo did this. And Jay's saying we definitely need a part 2 of reacting to videos. Yeah, I mean, we won't get to every video in this playlist, but we can expand the playlist and watch the rest and you know, yeah, expand as well, and do a part 2 at some point. Yeah, I'm definitely down for that.
Que notre planète, il est permis d'en douter. En vérité, l'enfant est un cadeau que les parents se font à eux-mêmes par pur égoïsme, sans autre souci que...
Hang on. So I'm going to need to pause it for this. So this is linking to what that guy in the previous video said about how, you know, people, it's like an addiction. People actually create it for themselves. Create a child for themselves.
Se faire plaisir et sans aucune considération pour le bien de l'enfant à naître, quitte même à procréer.
Yeah, and that's true. And like people seem to have very little concern for the welfare of the child. Like they still procreate in times of war and all of this sort of stuff.
En temps de guerre ou dans une société aussi monstrueuse que la nôtre. Le troisième droit de l'enfant, de l'homme, devrait donc être de pouvoir déposer plainte contre...
That's interesting. So that's what Raphael Samuel was saying.
Ses parents, si l'on s'estime lésé par le fait d'avoir reçu l'existence et que l'on ressent moins la vie comme un cadeau que comme un insupportable fardeau. Si ne pas naître est bel et bien dans l'intérêt supérieur de l'enfant, refuser de donner naissance à un nouvel enfant est également très profitable à l'environnement. Tous les scientifiques l'admettent, la surpopulation est le principal facteur d'éradication de la biodiversité. Or, on constate qu'en matière de procréation, les femmes préfèrent la qualité à la quantité. Lorsque les femmes disposent librement de leur corps et ont accès au planning familial, elles font le choix d'infliger la vie à très très peu d'enfants. 1,5 enfants en moyenne par femme en Europe, soit bien en dessous du seuil de renouvellement des générations. Autrement dit, si on laisse faire les femmes, elles font spontanément décroître la population mondiale et la conduisent lentement mais sûrement à une paisible extinction. Le féminisme est donc bien la clé solaire dans des natalismes salutaires et libertaires. Il me semble donc essentiel d'inscrire dans notre charte que le droit de toutes les femmes devrait être de disposer d'un accès inconditionnel et gratuit à la contraception, à l'avortement ainsi qu'à la stérilisation volontaire tout aussi gratuite et inconditionnelle pour celles qui le désirent. Ce droit à la stérilisation volontaire inconditionnelle
Glory to vasectomy. That's so funny. That should be put on a t-shirt.
Doit aussi s'appliquer à ceux qui le désirent.
Actually, I'm just going to take a screenshot of that to remind me if I, want to do anything later with that. That's so funny.
Gloire à la vasectomie, chers messieurs. Je propose en conséquence de modifier la motion 5.3 et de la formuler comme suit. Le droit à la vie et à l'intégrité physique doit valoir pour tous les hommes ainsi que pour tous les animaux déjà nés. Déjà nés. En ce qui concerne les humains pas encore nés, le droit à ne pas naître doit primer sur tous les autres droits et être favorisé par l'accès inconditionnel et gratuit à la contraception, à l'avortement et à la stérilisation volontaire. J'espère vivement que vous me suivrez sur tous ces points qui relèvent de l'éthique la plus fondamentale. Il faudra tout de même bien en finir un jour avec la barbarie de procréer, autant s'y appliquer tout de suite. Quand on demandait à Thalès de Milet pourquoi il ne voulait pas faire d'enfants, il répondait très justement « par amour pour les enfants ». Très grande leçon de sagesse et de bienveillance à méditer longuement. Now, to the people who want to discover more on the topics...
Maintenant, j'aimerais vraiment...
Okay, so he's gone to English, so she's translating. But yeah, so he recommends Karima Karma, which is cool. I haven't read that book, but it's good that Karim gets a shout out.
Vous recommandez de lire le livre de Karim Ackerman. Il faudrait vraiment le lire, qui s'appelle L'Antinatalisme, un manuel. Et là, il s'agit de l'antinatalisme, de cette nouvelle philosophie.
I appreciate that he framed antinatalism as like this philosophy and idea of love and compassion. I think that's the correct way to frame it, because it so much gets painted as like hate and all this stuff.
De l'amour et de la compassion.
He's actually getting claps as well. That was cool. Oh wait, there's still a tiny bit more. Nice. Oh, Amanda gets fat into the subtitles. Nice. Cool. Nice. I'm actually just gonna add something quickly to my notes. Cool. Okay, nice. Should we do another longer one then? So we've got one here, which is the one already playing, which is 15 minutes, and it's a short film, short antinatalist film. Let me just reposition myself again, so I'm back down in the corner. Boom, put myself down there. And yeah, let's have a watch. Oh, that was a fail. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong bloody screen. There we go.
you sure you want to go on that run?
Hang on a minute, it's got subtitles, so I'm going to need to zoom down a bit more so you can see them, and change myself. I'll put myself up here. Okay.
Oh yeah, I want to clear my head.
Okay, well, don't be too long. He'll be here soon.
Oh, sorry, I'm still on 0.75. Okay, back to normal. So Shapako's actually put something in the chat which is interesting, saying there's a strong link between Buddhism and antinatalism. So I actually agree. So there's a Buddhist center in London that I sometimes go to, and I've done a few courses there, and I've seen strong links. And I've actually spoken to a few people at the Buddhist center about antinatalism, and none of them had really considered it before, and they were quite interested that I was bringing it up. It was like a new idea to them. But yeah, there are quite like obvious links I see, and it's something I want to explore. So I wanted to get someone on to talk about it. So if anyone has any recommendations of someone who is an antinatalist and a Buddhist, or is very knowledgeable about the two, who would be good to have a conversation with, definitely send me an email or message me on Twitter to send me the details.
Okay, brilliant. I can't wait. I'll bring my best.
The market is quite great today. I guess
Not literally. That's not good.
Yeah, but he's rich. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we get a payout.
Oh, that's. I mean, that's kind of a unique chance for us, but I really have no idea what to expect.
I know. It's come around so quickly as well.
Like overall, we're good people, right?
Yeah, but people are different. It takes more than just that to be a good parent, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, he's here.
Sorry to pause again, but yeah, Shvako said Adam Godwin talks about it on his channel. So I think I know who you're talking about because I recognize the name. And I think I actually left a comment below his video, one of his videos on it. And I think he replied, and I had no way to like contact him. I couldn't find, so I left the comment, and yeah, and then he replied, and I think I then replied saying if he could email me, and then we can communicate via there rather than in comments. And I never heard anything, so yeah. But I'll keep trying because I want to have a conversation with someone.
Dan, Hannah, glad to see you guys again.
Sure. Hey, yeah, how was life?
I'm good, thank you. So, should we start?
Oh yeah, please, welcome to our house. John, it's such a privilege for us to be the part of the beta testing, and it means the world to us.
You can't imagine how privileged we are at Nexus to be able to find such a gracious couple with high degree of conscious and expediency.
Yeah, we've been preparing to have a child for quite some time now, and we just feel this is the final step before finally conceiving.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a decade of research and billions of dollars invested into the program.
I still can't believe that's possible in our time.
The process was quite elaborate. We isolated your specific egg and sperm to create an embryo. That embryo was then scanned and digitalized in a virtual reality of a physical world. Those cells were then combined to create a virtual embryo that is empowered by a computer until the birth of your child occurs in a synthetic way.
But does that mean...
Yes, we created an AI conscious of your yet unborn child, so you'll be able to have a conversation and ask any sorts of questions.
But how do we communicate with the child?
Well, I brought you a piece of our technology. Since you let us scan your brains, the offspring will be raised by the virtual versions of you. The mind will have memories of how he ate, learned to speak, and hang out with his parents throughout his childhood and adolescence. He is now at the dawn of his adulthood, so he's pretty mature to talk about pretty much any topic. I think that's all you have to know for now. I'll be outside if you need any questions, and I'll leave you to at it.
Wait, you said that he's into his...
It's a boy.
It's a boy!
Oh my god, should we call him?
What about Jasper?
How do you know?
Well, we got the name off of the information from the brain cells. Anyways, you guys don't be nervous. Like I said, if you have any more questions, I'll be outside.
Alright, thanks.
It's an interesting concept this guy came up with. So yeah, for anyone who's not following or has been paying, has this on in the background, basically this is a short film this guy made, and the concept of the film is that you have a couple who's thinking about conceiving, and there's this technology available where you can have an AI simulation of the child that you're going to have. And so you can speak to the child before they are born. And so this film is about the resulting thing that happens.
Oh my gosh, he kind of looks like me.
That's incredible.
Hey.
Hey, how's life?
What? Life?
Yeah, like, how's it going?
Oh, yeah, indeed, yeah. It's going. Wow. I'm good. Wait, are you?
Yeah, we're kinda your parents.
What do you mean, kinda? You've been my parents since I've known myself.
Sorry, I'm just a bit nervous.
We wanted to ask you, what do you think of us as parents?
Well, remember when I was 8 years old and you saw me picking my nose, and right after I swallowed that booger, you appeared with an angry face. But instead of berating me, you actually said that you do it yourself when nobody's around. And we were pondering on organising grand booger buffet so people can come out as they are.
Oh.
I felt so accepted, remember?
Oh.
Yeah, and there was another time, the day I needed my tooth to be extracted. And you, Dad, you said, "Oh, no worries, honey, it's not a big deal." And I replied in a grumpy way saying, "Oh, it's not a big deal for you because it's not your tooth." You smiled at me, came into the dentist's office with me, sat next to the dental chair next to mine, and asked the other doctor to remove any tooth he likes so my boy doesn't have to feel like a lonely sufferer. I mean, wow. I just thought, what a cool dad. I was moved. Remember?
Will he do that?
Seems like I have all these wonderful memories of moments filled with your presence that have happened to me, but they haven't yet taken place in your life, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the thing, that we just wanted to know whether you'll be happy with us in advance.
Oh, I adore you. You know, I've heard so many stories of how childhood can be ruined by parents, but you guys have been amazing. You're so caring and attentive and sympathetic and loving and adequate and tactical and intelligent, creative, active and healthy and wealthy and even good looking. You know, I've always been thinking, my folks are just simply perfect.
Your words mean everything.
You guys deserve the best praise. Honestly, I mean that. I love you.
Oh, we love you too. We're so excited to introduce you to our world.
Oh, your world. Yeah. All right.
Do I sense some confusion?
Oh, no, please, go ahead.
So you know that you don't have a body yet, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're here. We have your best interests at heart.
Yeah, we want to ask your permission to bring you into the human world.
What if we was to conceive you
tonight?
Hey? Oh, sorry, no, yeah. I just got blown away by the depth of your intelligence. Well, basically, where do I start? Quite frankly, mathematically speaking, the life that you want to give me is a negative-sum game. The bad column far outstrips the good one.
Well, yeah, there is suffering, but that's just life. You've worked through it by dealing with it profoundly. You make it richer, more meaningful. The vicissitudes of life create that stream, which provide an endless current of joy.
Yeah.
The fact that one enjoys one's life doesn't make one's existence better than non-existence.
You can't state that. Not coming into existence is a negative-sum game, because you're deprived from all the good things, huh?
If I don't exist, then there's no one who can be deprived. And even if goods and pleasures enjoyed by existers are advantages of their lives, they're not advantages that secure the costs of existence. There is simply nothing in existence that can overweigh non-existence.
It's a cool concept, isn't it? Like what they've done here. Although I'm sure you guys are all like deep into it, so actually I won't interrupt.
John, I have a question.
Daniel, you cannot leave the room until the end of the session.
But he's saying some weird stuff about life. Is there anything wrong with the program?
It's not a program, it's a perfectly functioning mind of your yet unborn child. So please, go back to the room and finish the conversation. It's really important for all of us here.
Alright, okay. Okay.
Hey, look at us. We've been through so many things, and based on our experience, there are way more good things than bad.
Look, Dad, can you tell me 5 things that have happened to you in the last month?
Well, I had a dinner with your mom and I lifted 100 kilos and yeah, I got promoted and I've tried ultimate frisbee and yeah, it was fun.
And these are the most emotionally significant things for you, right?
Yeah.
So, not the moment when your father called you saying he's considering suicide because of unrelenting loneliness, or the moment you found ringworm on your scrotum, or how about the moment when your cat got attacked by those stray dogs, or the moment the mum said she'll leave you for another man if you don't have a baby with her, and you'll end up pretty much just like your father. It seems like these were the most emotionally significant things for you. None of them, though, you thought worth mentioning.
Well, you asked me and those things popped up first.
Guys, you tend to ignore just how much of your lives are characterized by discomfort.
So this is talking about like the Pollyanna principle, right?
Pain and suffering.
And the first thing that they were talking about you know, non-existent existence not having an advantage over non-existence is playing off of the thought experiment Benatar has about the healthy and sick, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of.
And loneliness and distress and guilt and shame, irritation, boredom, anxiety, frustration, stress, fear, grief, sadness, hunger, thirst, bladder distension, allergies, thermal discomfort, body image dissatisfaction, menstrual pains, headaches, the ravages of AIDS, of cancer, of other such life-threatening diseases. Your lives are in fact much worse than you think.
Yes, but you can adapt.
You can't help but adapt. Like the frog. You're bathing in the soup of life, and with the temperature rising slowly, you will tolerate more and more discomfort until you're cooked to death.
Yes, death is scary, but when you're here, when you're real, there is just that feeling that life is simply worth living.
Yes, because you're in a phase of life that is not as bad as it's going to get. One day, life reaches a certain threshold of badness, and here we go. No quantity of good will be able to overweigh it. Like, look, Dad, I have a bargain for you. Would you exchange 30 minutes of the worst pain for 60 minutes of the best pleasure?
No.
Okay. How about 15 minutes of the worst pain for 60 minutes of the best pleasure? Are we cooking?
No.
Okay.
No.
My final offer. 1 minute of the most worst, excruciating pain for 120 minutes of the best, most profound pleasure you will ever experience.
Well, it sounds like a bargain.
What? Are you crazy? Imagine what can happen to you.
You see, there is a very unfortunate asymmetry between the sheer quality.
Hobo's asking for the link to the original video. Yeah, I'll include the link to the original videos of everything we watch after the stream is finished. I'll put them in the description so everyone's got them.
With pleasure and pain. The latter hits harder, with a higher frequency and longer duration. Alas, nature is designed to bestow upon you an immense amount of suffering. It is written so deeply into the structure of sentient life. It's just unavoidable.
You don't trust us? You don't want to come into existence?
With the question that you posed onto me, you are playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun, aimed of course not at your own heads, but at mine. So why are you so confused about my hesitance to pull the trigger?
Why are you so nihilistic?
No, I don't reject your values. I'm trying to serve them the best way possible. I'm your son.
But by hinting that the best scenario for us is to go extinct?
No, please, live. Find some meaning, enjoy the ride if you can. The question is not would you rather be dead, but would you rather have not existed?
I prefer this conversation never existed.
Yeah. It's hard to swallow the conclusion that it's better not to have been.
So you want us to break the continuity, this circle of life?
It's a misleading expression. You're not going in a circle. You live, you die, and you're gone forever. And if you breed, then you're just adding up another layer to the procreational Ponzi scheme of suffering.
It's in our nature to procreate.
Yep. Human existence, although but a blip on the radar of cosmic time, is laden with madness. that is directed to no end other than its own perpetuation.
Look, your arguments are correct, but not relevant because we're genetic, but not logical beings.
Well, genetically speaking, you guys are aggressive animals full of prejudice, but it's not appropriate to behave this way. So what's the problem to reevaluate the utility of the other obsolete biological impulse?
What is wrong with you?
Yeah, indeed. Who am I if not an accidentally happened blunder of life pondering on its quite misfortunate position? Some kind of hyperactivity of the psychological survival system? Stolen from non-existence, I'm a conscious nothing, progressing into extinction while reflecting on reasons. Why should generations unborn be spared entry into the human threshold?
The human threshold?
Please don't interrupt me, I'm getting poetic. Isn't it arrogant to think that human presence makes the world a better place? Nothing in nature needs us, nothing will miss us because we are apparently not from here. So let us strive through the cocoon of vital fiction. Let us dissolve back into the dark corner of infinitude.
Look, we sincerely want you in our lives.
No. You sincerely want to get your fair share of existential anesthesia to forget yourselves behind the veil of busyness by nurturing and raising me. You want an insurance policy, a devoted shit wiper for your future decrepit butts.
Look, you won't be a shit wiper. Everything will be covered by our investments. Look around, we are rich.
My dear child, please don't be so pessimistic. You'll be raised on New Age philosophy. You can reunite with the sanctuary that humanity abandoned. Nature will weep the day you die.
You're offering me a pill that is supposed to cure the disease, but what if I don't want the disease itself? And if you...
Yeah, that's so true. Like, people constantly offer ways to alleviate the needs and desires and issues that they've imposed on someone in the first place when they created them.
Spare me of the ignominies of existence. If with this conversation you are presenting me the right of not being born, then I would like to exercise it.
And it also shows, you know, how procreation is a self-serving act, you know. The reaction these prospective parents are having encapsulates how, you know, they were doing it for themselves, because if they were doing it for the child and they were able to then speak to the child before they were born and the child said, I'd prefer not to be created, they wouldn't be pissed off. They would just be like, okay, well, that's the best thing for them. That's what they, you know, that's what they wish. We won't do it. The fact that they're pissed off shows that they were doing it because they wanted to, because now they're not going, now they're having friction with the thing of like, if they get what they want, it's going to come at the expense of someone else, which was always the case, but now they're realizing it, right?
Yeah? Last time they got rejected as well. What? Yeah, I'm sorry about the news. Okay.
I established Nexus Corporation 30 years ago with our tech solution. We wanted people to make better decisions about procreation. We didn't want anybody to go child-free or to help them make this decision. 100 Mind. We generated. We took the best possible DNA, the best possible parents. And what happened? 100% of the time, this synthetic mind refuses to enter this carnal world. It's as if they all sense something honorable in deciding not to exist, in aborting their own birth. It's as if they want the global population to become zero. It's as if they understand that to enter this world is to become scars on the face of existence, whose only goal, whose only reasonable responsibility is to but heal and fade away.
That video is inspired by these two books. Thank you so much to all the actors. Please check out Jasper's YouTube channel. He's an amazing artist. Thank you so much to Hannah, Jacob, Costa, and as well Anastasia and Alicia. Filmed and color graded by Simply Costa.
It's an interesting one, right? It would be interesting to see if, you know, if people change their minds at all when yeah, actually I should maybe get this guy on and just talk to him about the production of it and stuff, What's he? It's called the Truth Catcher, isn't it? Is his channel? Yeah, Truth Catcher. Cool. Sorry, you're seeing a bit of behind the scenes. This is how I usually find out who I want to like try and get on and have conversations with. Is, you know, I just come across stuff. I've got the stream there, and you're all in the chat, so how I can see the chat, but it's actually here I need to be looking at. Yeah, I just see, you know, watch videos, come across things, and I'm like, oh, it'd be interesting to talk to that person. Cool. I think the next thing we can go back to this video that you started to watch when I went to the toilet. I'm just going to quickly close my window a bit more, so I will be right back in like 10 seconds. Cool, let's go.
There is another reason why kids appear so fascinating to us. It's the hormones. It's not only the human kid. The babies of even animals appear so cute. That's a ploy of Prakriti.
Sorry, so this video is called The Violence of Giving Birth by Akarya Prashant. And yeah, if anyone wants to hear a bit more about him, in my so I do a series called Antinatalism Around the World, where I talk to antinatalists from different countries around the world, see what it's like to be antinatalist there, explore a bit about like the history of antinatalism there, any figures, any laws, or anything that's relevant to it. And I recently did, I think it's the most recent one, I can't remember, I think it is the most recent one, but I did one on antinatalism in India. And we talk a bit about this guy. So if you want to know any more about this guy, about his background, who he is, you can go watch that video. Yeah, let's have a look.
Babies have to appear cute, otherwise they are so defenseless that they would be smashed. Babies must appear cute. That does not mean that babies have something extraordinary in them. It's just that you are conditioned to find any baby cute. The baby of a pig is cute, the baby of a monkey is cute. Even little snakes you don't feel like killing. If you come across a full-grown cobra, then in fear or in self-defense or in just madness, you may want to kill it. But if you come across a little snakelet just emerging from the egg.
Snakelet, that's a funny term.
You may even put it on your palm and say, oh, see how nice, how cute. What you found, baby? Prakriti does it so that the snake species may survive. But this is something that we do not understand. And regrettably, I say that most women do not understand. They have such fascination for babies that for the sake of babies, they often destroy all their life. I'm not saying that men do not have that fascination. Many men also have that fascination, little babies. It doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman. It's your responsibility to understand where that fascination is coming from. Biological, sexual. Obviously, if you want to have kids, then sex becomes legitimized. Not only legitimized, sex then becomes venerable. So many strands of thought, so many religious schools have emphasized that the only rightful purpose of sex is procreation. So if you want procreation, then sex is okay. get out of this obsession with kids. The more you obsess with kids, the more you show how body-centered, egg-centered, and Prakriti-centered you are. This entire planet is suffering because of man's obsession with kids. You produce kids as if the kid would forever remain a kid. You totally forget that the kid would soon, very, very soon, be a fully grown-up individual.
Yeah, it's so true when people talk, and it's even built into the language, which is why, I mean, I still say having kids, but it's more accurate to say create someone, because creating someone, you are creating someone. But when you say having kids, it does two things. The first thing is it focuses on kids, right? So sure, and obviously this comes from a very understandable place, because when you create someone, you create them as a child, right? They're not born as a 70-year-old. They're born as a baby, a child. So you can see where the language comes from, but I think this is misleading because it's put so much emphasis on that when that is only a very small part of the life cycle, right? You are a child for, or you're a young child for, you know, a few years, 10 years at max. Then you grow up a bit more, and most people put being a child up for about 20 years, and then you become an adult. But the average life expectancy now is like 70. A lot of people live to 80, 90. So the person you're creating for the majority of their life is going to be an adult, and they're going to become old as well. In fact, they're going to be, if they live for 80, 90 years, they're going to be elderly longer than they were a child, right? So that's one thing that this term having kids does, is it focuses too much on the kids. And obviously with that, you know, when someone is a kid, that's when they're the cutest, you know, cuddly, cute, all fuzzy, warm. But it's also when you bond with them the most, seemingly. That's with the sort of foundational time when you're bonding with them. And so it lends itself to this view of being rose-tinted, glossy, Hollywoodized, sugar-coated, all of this sort of stuff, focusing on the child part of it rather than adult or old-age pensioner. The other thing that it does, this phrase, is the term having rather than creating. Creating is an active, you know, I am actively doing this. I'm creating someone else. This is something I can be held accountable for, you know, I'm actively doing something. Whereas having a kid, it's less of an active term. My hip just clicked. That was really nice. Yeah, having seems more passive. And I think combining those two things together, someone to have kids, it takes away the agency that they had in bringing this state of affairs around, and it glosses over the fact that the person they're creating is going to be old at some point, you know, have disease, all of this sort of stuff. So I don't know how I got into this tangent, but yeah, I'm not a fan of the term having kids, because I think it disguises, and it's like a whitewash term, you know, this term like whitewashing, sort of making something out to be something it isn't, smoothing over things that should be highlighted. Yeah. So I think creating people or creating someone is a more accurate term, but obviously people don't want to use that. One, because it's different, you know, it's jarring, it's not how they're used to, but also I think it highlights a lot more of the morally relevant things that they're doing. So people don't like that. They like the euphemisms.
But for 3 years of Kuchiku, you burden the planet with 100 years of the excreta of that full-grown individual.
So I'm just pausing again. Nadia is saying that the rich have longer lives, the not so rich have far lower life expectancies. I believe the average life expectancy in the world now is something like 70, I believe. I mean, we can actually look this up. our world in data, life expectancy. Now, I may be wrong. Am I being blind? Where does it say it? Right. So since 1900, the global average life expectancy has more than doubled and is now 70 years. And this was last revised in 2019. So it's probably even longer now. So, yeah. How did it change over time? Yeah, so life expectancy average around the world is 70 now. So, yeah, I think a lot of people get... a lot of people base these sort of general truths about, you know, life expectancy or the amount of people in poverty or disease rates and stuff. Often they base their conceptions of these on outdated assumptions about the world, which I still do a lot, and I've done a lot in the past. But the website Our World in Data is really good. Sort of tracks these broad, large-scale trends in society and puts data behind it and stuff. And yeah, I mean, most people in the world are still not rich, but the average life expectancy is still 70. Yeah. So cool. And yeah, Nadia is saying developing countries have lower life expectancy, 52 in Chad and Nigeria. Yeah, no, I agree. It's an average, right? So obviously some people are going to be higher than that, some people are going to be lower than that. But if you take the average of the world, it's now at 70. So I was just speaking in sort of general terms. Yeah, let's continue.
For how many years do you get to Kuchiku the kid? 3 years. And for how many years does that kid destroy the planet? 100 years. You do not see that. After 3 years, do you pack the kid back and parcel it back to your uterus? After 3 years, you leave the kid upon the world. Or you say that now I am busy preparing for the next one. So this one can now go out and destroy the streets. It is very strange how religions have often said that it is violence and sinful to kill. But no one has ever emphasized that there is great violence in procreation. Today, ahimsa consists less of not killing. Today, the greatest act of ahimsa is to not to reproduce.
That's interesting. If anyone doesn't know, ahimsa means non-violence, I think, is the translation. And I've not actually heard someone link ahimsa directly to procreation before.
Violence lies less in killing. Today, violence lies much more in giving birth.
It's interesting because he's saying, so violence and killing, when you kill someone, the violence is contained within the killing, right? But when you create someone, you know that they will die at some point, and so you're responsible for that violence, but also all the violence leading up to that. So it's quite interesting that he makes that point.
But if somebody is assaulting someone, you are quick to deplore. You say, oh, such violence, such violence. And if you come across a pregnant woman, you suddenly become so decent, so gentle, so accommodating and so tolerant. If someone practices black magic, then you say that he is, badly conditioned by centuries of rituals, right? If you find somebody practicing black magic, then you are quick to decry. medieval rituals. And how old is this ritual of procreation, I ask you? And why must this continue as a ritual? Why can't there be any wisdom in the decision? Why must you habitually procreate? Why must you take it as an obligation to procreate? Why must you feel that a part of your life remains unfulfilled if you are childless? Is it not hoodoo and black magic to believe so much in maternity and pregnancy and the fullness of the nest? But no intellectual would come forward to say that maternity today is mostly an act of great violence. We keep on talking of saving life. Without ever knowing the meaning of life. There would be a blood donation camp and the hoarding would read, donate blood, save a life. And you feel like asking, save what exactly? Save what? What do you mean by life? A breathing mass of flesh, that's life? What's life? Something that begins when the child emerges from the body of the mother? What is life? Do you really want to save life?
When he said what is life there, it reminded me of, what is love? I think maybe he's getting a bit woo-woo now, but we'll see. It's near the end of the video, so we'll see.
Then first of all, learn what life is. Then you will really be interested in life and much less interested in giving birth.
Okay, cool. Cool. Let's now have a bit of stand-up. So, if anyone doesn't know, this is Doug Stanhope. So, Doug is a comedian. He's openly said he's anti-natalist. He's quite a famous comedian as well, like internationally famous. He's openly said he's anti-natalist. He has a very pessimistic outlook on life. And I don't think he has it in his comedy much nowadays, but he has a set, he has a bit where it's very anti-natalist, and this is it. So let's take a look.
The whole idea that parents are no longer responsible for their children.
It's quite quiet actually as well, so you might want to turn your volume up. So what I'll do for this section is I won't talk, because if I talk then it will blow your ears out the water. So if you want to turn your volume up so you can hear the clip, because the clip's quite quiet, I will not talk. Oh man, so that's that's Doug Stanhope. I haven't seen all of his stuff, so I don't know what his other stuff is like. I've seen some of his other stuff, but I don't know what it's like as a whole. But yeah, it's funny, and good points. Like I think it's good when someone can create comedy but also make a point about something, because sometimes people make comedy about inane shit, and it's like it can still be funny, but it doesn't necessarily make a point. It's just like observational comedy or whatever. But yeah, it was a good bit. It's funny. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Cool. So I think we've been going for 2.5 hours. Let's maybe go for another sort of 20 minutes or so. So we've got this, another one by Sophophilia. I thought there's another one which isn't necessarily about antinatalism, but it's related. I thought we'd watch. And then we can see where we are at that point. So let's have a look at this one.
When you talk to people about not wanting to have kids, they usually start explaining their views on life. They're like, yeah, I understand their
Oh, sorry, wait, it's sped up.
pains in this life, but there's a good balance between pain and pleasure, and that's the beauty of life. Life made me who I am, and I'm enjoying it. Life is good. Yeah, okay, let us assume that you've got this amazing philosophy of life. You've achieved this alchemical wisdom of turning this life into gold. Now, I'm not going to assume that you're so naive to think that there is an absolute philosophy of life and you've got it, everyone else is wrong. The point that I want to make is that you do not pass on your philosophies through your genes. It's very much possible that your children walk on a different path and have a different worldview. You can't make your children think the way that you do. I have a good life. I enjoy it. I believe life is a great experience. But I am still an anti-natalist. Why? Because that's how I see life. I can't force someone into this life on the off chance that they might see the world the way that I do. Because guess what? They usually don't. When we say life is amazing, I want to have kids, I believe that deep down we also know that this is not an argument. This is not even a good objection to anti-natalist arguments. This is just our making peace with ourselves for even considering such a cruel act. This is our pardoning ourselves for the sin we're about to commit.
So Shatom, hey, it is asking if this will be available to watch after. So yes, this will be available to watch the whole stream afterwards. And I will link all of the links to the videos that we've watched in the description, so you can find the original videos as well. So this next one's interesting. So it's by Big Think, which is a big YouTube channel, does very professional videos on a whole range of topics, get experts in to talk about different issues. And in this one, they have an expert talking about whether having kids or creating someone will make you happy. And I think this is an interesting video, because I had for the longest time been under the impression that it does, but it's actually only since becoming antinatalist that I've seen people talking about the evidence behind this, and actually it's the case that it doesn't necessarily in a reliable way. So we'll see what this person has to say.
The question of why we have children, why we're motivated to have children, is kind of, from a Darwinian point of view, a little bit of a no-brainer, which is that those animals that were not predisposed to have children in some way or another did not leave behind children, and not as many children as those that wanted to have children. There were probably some primate ancestors of ourselves that as soon as they saw children, they thought, how delicious, what a source of fat and protein, and ate them all up. The genes that motivated them to do that did not prosper as much as the genes that motivated our other primate ancestors to say, how adorable, I will love them and protect them. Now that we're reflective beings, that we could think about what we do, we could choose, for instance, to have sex without the idea of having kids. We have this flexibility. And then the question of why people choose to have kids becomes more complicated. The negatives of having children are obvious. You don't need a psychologist to tell you about them. Money, anxiety, sleepless nights, sleep deprivation, all the time they take up. Studies find that for couples who have kids, the #1 source of fighting and argument and tension, it's not relatives, it's not sex, it's not money, it's kids. It's a really hard question from a hedonic point of view. Are children a positive and negative? And I think the answer is going to differ from person to person in perhaps unpredictable ways. But people don't seem to say, wow, what a disaster that was. What a bad move. And I think if you tell parents, you know, there's a lot of evidence saying that kids don't make you overall happier. Their response will often be, that's not why I have kids. That's not why I love my kids. And I think the reason goes back to the idea of motivational pluralism. So motivational pluralism is the fact that humans want many things. We want pleasure, we want to be good, we want meaning, we want purpose. So if you ask parents whether their lives are meaningful, they tend to say yes, more than non-parents. Meaning, in the broad sense, is intimately related to the more heavy-duty suffering and difficulty. So Danny Kahneman talks about two different kinds of happiness. One is experienced happiness, which is, you know, you're doing something and I tap you on the shoulder and say, how happy are you? How's it going? The other one is remembered happiness. Remember when you were doing that thing, how much did you like it? The experienced happiness with children is complicated and often lower than you would expect, while a remembered happiness could be higher. One explanation for this, proposed by Jennifer Senior, who's a science writer who's written a lot about this, is that our memories are distorted in interesting ways. And we often remember the peaks, we remember the good times. I think back on having my kids and I have a million memories, these wonderful things, which I go back to over and over again and kind of nurture. So my remembered happiness might be high. The experienced happiness, the day-to-day stuff, the million diaper changes.
It's interesting, that kind of relates to polyanism then, and argues in favor of polyanism. Like, we have this bias of when we look back, we think about the positive things, and it skews our perception of the past and reality.
And getting up in the middle of the night, you just forget all that. If somebody asked me, do you recommend I have a kid or not? I would say, hey, this is a tough call. But what I would advise is explore what it is to have a kid. Look at some of the research into how people describe their lives. Talk to parents. Not with an eye towards saying, oh, plainly this is a good decision or plainly this is a bad decision, because the data's not going to be there. It's just too mixed. But what you could find is how well it meshes with how you are or how you want to be. Having children is what my friend and colleague, the philosopher Laurie Paul, calls a transformative experience. It's a kind of experience that changes you in such a way that right now you can't project what it would be like to be a parent. Because when you are a parent, you'll be a different kind of person than you are now. You have different priorities, different interests, different drives, different experiences. Now, I'll add a caveat, which is there's other ways to get meaning in life. Some people I love very much are non-parents, either due to circumstance or due to choice, and they live very rich and fulfilling lives. There's more than one route to meaning. But I do want to suggest that that's one reason, one argument. Forget about populating a universe, forget about perpetrating the species. One argument in favor of having kids is that not that it scratches the itch of happiness, but that it's part and parcel of a meaningful life.
And like, to be fair to what he's saying, like, for many people, it is a place that they find meaning. It's sort of like a, we're all just, you know, dumped here, and we're meaning-seeking creatures. We need to find meaning. And there's this package that evolution has built into us that, you know, says, this is a place where you can find meaning for an extended period of time in your life, maybe the whole of the rest of your life. And it's sort of like a prepackaged thing that you can just go boom, and that, you know, that helps alleviate that problem, which is true. I don't think we need to deny that. Whether it morally justifies the act of creating them is a separate question, obviously, and that's when antinatalists would have something to say. But yeah, just the fact that it is a source of meaning doesn't mean that it has to be the source of meaning that people go to, right? There are many other places that you can find meaning. Cool. Okay, I think we've got time for like one more video, or maybe we'll watch this quick short one from Sophiophilia again, and then we'll watch one other one. Maybe we can watch this Defending an Antinatalist one, because we've seen one by these two guys before. So we'll watch this one and then we'll have the final one. That. And we can always do another live stream to watch other stuff.
They teach us to respect our parents. If we ask why, they will remind us of all the things they have gone through to get us to where we are, from providing food, shelter, and safe environment to enduring 9 months of pregnancy and sleepless nights. But let me explain through an example why this alone is not enough to gain our respect. This is Bob, just a random person. We're going to do something bad to Bob. We have a device that gives us power to strip Bob of everything he has. We will fire him from his job, we will destroy his house and his car, we will steal his money and any property that he might have. We will erase his memory, remove any skills that he has, and get him away from his family. At last, we will remove his clothes. Bob is hopeless now. He does not even know enough to know that he is hopeless. He is naked, hungry, and cries like a baby. Now we bring Bob into our home. We take care of him. We give him food and shelter. We help him go to school. We help him learn language and other skills until he gets to where he was before. The question is, should Bob respect us for all we did for him? Obviously no, because we were the reason that Bob required all that care in the first place, and he hadn't asked us to do such a thing to him. It would be ridiculous to ask for his respect when we, without his consent, put him in such a desperate situation. But this is exactly what we do when we bring children into this world. We put them in a hopeless position that they did not ask for it. We cannot deserve any respect for what we do next. At best, it will be compensation for the cruelty that we committed before.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That's a specific topic that I want to explore more. And actually, maybe I've been wanting to, like, I've messaged this guy who runs this channel, and I've been wanting to have like a conversation with him, but I haven't thought of a topic yet. But actually, I might suggest this topic. So, yeah, we'll see. Cool. Let's do this.
I don't agree with that.
Let's do this final video then. So, let me just. Cool. So this one is so online. I'm sure many of you have seen. There's a few new people in the chat. So Reflective Journey, hey, HT, hey, Faduma, hey. I think that's everyone I can see. Charlatan, hey. And Charlatan saying they're an antinatalist parent. Well, there are quite a few antinatalist parents, and actually I've had a conversation with Danny Shine, who is an antinatalist parent. So if you want to watch that conversation, go on to my channel, go to playlists, find the playlist that's called Conversations, and it's one of the first ones. But yeah, I think, parents should be welcomed into antinatalism, obviously. It's, they could be adoptive parents, or if they're biological parents, like, you don't get to decide when you become antinatalist, really. It's just something that kind of happens to you because of the information that you're exposed to. Yeah, anyway, let's watch this one. So a bit of background. So basically, some of you may be familiar with the atheist experience. So I don't know if they're still doing stuff now, but their heyday is kind of past. But basically, it was a show where they had atheists who anyone could phone in, and you could either talk about being an atheist and how that is in life and the country you're in, or people could debate. But yeah, I think that was like the OG sort of call-in show on that topic of religion. And now there's loads of different ones of different religions, and it's quite popular for Muslims to do it. So yeah, I think this is one of them. This guy, I forget his name, but he's quite a famous like Muslim debater guy. And yeah, he was obviously hosting a call-in thing, and an antinatalist called in. So let's see what happens.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, so you're into that category.
Oh, sorry. Let me just let me just move myself so I'm not blocking the subtitles. And also, this isn't the original video. There's this is a reaction to the original video, so there will be someone giving a commentary.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, so you think suffering is good?
No, I didn't say that.
So,
so
I watched an antinatalist talking to two Muslim apologists. There was a question and the antinatalist didn't know what to say. So I wanted to answer all the questions that the Muslim apologist was asking. Let's get into this.
Welcome, antinatalist, somebody who believes in antinatalism. So let's have a conversation.
First of all, thank you for having me on the call. And I just wanted to discuss antinatalism with you guys. And for your audience, I would just say that antinatalism is a philosophy according to which...
Sure, just before that, are you a Muslim, non-Muslim? Who are you?
Well, I would categorize myself as just antinatalist, like not as Muslim.
So theologically, what's your belief? Like, that's not a theological position, antinatalism.
I think that theologically, I don't want to, like, I would not put myself into that category that I want to be recognized as from some real religious perspective. Like,
okay, so
one can just be, I think it doesn't matter whether you believe in God or don't.
Okay, so you're like agnostic?
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah, so to me, like from my perspective, it doesn't matter. Like if you believe in God, that's good. If you do not believe in God, it's up to you. Like it doesn't really matter. You can do good believing in God, and you can do good not believing in God. According
Sure.
to
So go. I mean, I don't agree with what you said, but anyway, we'll carry on. Speak about antinatalism. Tell us what you think.
Yes, antinatalism is a philosophy according to which it would have been better if we were never born or existed.
Well, he unintentionally misrepresents what antinatalism is. People who are already convinced of the views of antinatalism think it would have been better for us never to have existed. But antinatalism is not about us. It's about bringing new sentient beings into existence. It is the view that it is wrong to bring new people into existence. Broadly speaking, this also includes all sentient beings. It's not just wrong to bring new people into existence, it's also harmful to come into existence.
Yes, antinatalism is a philosophy according to which it would have been better if we were never born or existed.
But we would never hear your question, my friend. You would not be here.
Yes. That's right. If I would not have been here, there is no loss to me at all because I wasn't there at all to be deprived of any loss. Like I want you to think about the point. So like in your world, from this Islamic point of view, like God created all of us. But if we think like when only God was there and we were not there, like think about that point of view. There is nothing bad in that point of view. But now as we exist, there is suffering, like somebody is suffering, obviously.
Oh, I see.
The antinatalist makes a good point. Even from a theological perspective, humans would not have suffered if God had not created them.
But it doesn't matter if they're suffering on your worldview, right?
But what's the need of this suffering?
Why have you attached meaning to suffering?
I don't know what Muhammad Ijab said here. I can't hear him properly, but he asks the antinatalist, why has he attached meaning to suffering? Well, we know suffering means a lot of pain.
Yeah, I think when people ask, like, why do you attach meaning to suffering, like, it always just comes across as disingenuous, like, trying to, like, being cynical and trying to point score, because it's like, if someone asks you that question and you slap them around the face, like, they're going to get their answer, right? Like, it's not something you have to intellectualize. It's something that just is a negatively valenced thing. And by definition, if it's negative, we don't want it, right? Yeah, I just kind of don't really like. I just think it's kind of like childish games. Like, we all recognize that if we go through the suffering, it's something that is negative to experience
and harm.
It doesn't mean once you're here that's the only thing you have to value, but it clearly has some value. It's clearly something we care about.
So we try to avoid it. But most of the suffering has no meaning. We are just born into this godless world where there is a lot of meaningless suffering. Just think about the thousands of children diagnosed with cancer each year, or a person who did nothing wrong but was severely injured in a road accident.
Just before that, let's get him to define his philosophy first a bit more.
And more it is that, I mean, in your world, we obviously God created us, but there are so many atheists who think that there is no God. But to them, I would say that we should not give birth to further our children, because it is actually lost to them, because we are putting them into existence, and existence contains suffering. And therefore, to them, this would be the worldview. But according to you, obviously, you guys think that God created us.
Why is suffering bad?
Why is suffering bad? When he asked this question, it reminded me of Jordan Peterson's debate with David Benatar. Jordan Peterson asked a similar question. Listen to it.
It seems to me that you're defining bad, like one of the key elements of your entire argument is that bad is associated with suffering. And that's because that's what's justifying your anti-natal.
Sorry to pause the video, but just because we're getting to the end, if there was any other video, or because a few people have mentioned in the chat other videos or YouTubers and stuff that they wanted to bring to my attention, but like, because I've been doing this live, I haven't really been able to, like, you know, respond and stuff. So I'm going to put my email in the chat now, so that you have it and you can send stuff there. And also, Charlatan in the chat, are you able to send me an email so that we have a line of communication? Because yeah, I'd like to talk with you. So yeah, can you send an email to that? And anyone else who has anything else they wanna send it there.
Position. So if loss of knowledge is okay, go ahead.
You keep.
And Nadia is saying in the chat that Jordan Peterson was humiliated by David Benatar. Let's be honest, it's not hard to humiliate Jordan Peterson, but yeah, he definitely was. And I've actually done a live already reacting to this conversation, and I think it's my most viewed live that I've done. But yeah, I've just changed the thumbnail for it, and I've actually gone through and changed it through the backlog of stuff and videos and lives, and changed a few thumbnails to update them. But yeah, you can go back and watch that if you like.
Saying that I'm associating bad with a pain, and I'm telling you I'm not doing that.
Okay, what are you associating it with?
Well, I think there can be a variety of things that can be good, different things that can be good, and different things that can be bad. So
well, let's define bad. Sure, pain. Okay.
Pain is one thing that's bad. I think ignorance is bad. I think that malevolence is bad. So
okay, why is ignorance bad?
Well, because knowledge is something that's valuable. It's the flip side of it. But what I'm worried we're going to get down. I think we are going to get bogged down if we go down this route. And I don't think that you and I, especially given our professions, disagree about knowledge being good. If we disagree about that and about ignorance being bad, then I'm not sure quite what we're engaged in as
no, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I'm just curious about how it is when you state something is bad that you justify the claim that it's bad, because as far as I can tell, your argument in your anti-natalist argument is based on an attempt at quantification. And, yeah.
Let me flip the question around to you. Why do you think ignorance is bad?
Yeah, that's the thing, is like so many people, they're like, oh yeah, bro, why is this bad? Why is that bad? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, at the end of the day, they understand it's bad as well. They're just trying to catch you on some sort of like, it's at the end of the day, it bottoms out as something like it's axiological, right? Like there is something that you have to value and not be able to intellectually justify it, because then you can keep asking why. So if you keep asking why, you'll eventually bottom out at something. Everyone has something they bottom out at, and usually it is suffering, right? Something you value negatively or disvalue, however you want to put it. So often I see these, like sometimes it is valuable, but often when people try and play these games, I see them as like silly little games that they're just trying to win cheap points on. And it's good that Benatar flips this around at Jordan, because it's like, everyone knows that Jordan will also see these things as negative if you push him on it enough. He's just trying to hide that fact and play these silly little games.
Because I think that it increases the probability of
unnecessary suffering. But Jordan, why is unnecessary suffering bad? Why do you value that? You see what I mean? Like, everyone can play these silly little games.
Unnecessary suffering. And I stress unnecessary.
So you are a hedonist.
Why is suffering bad?
Why is ignorance bad?
Well, because knowledge is something that's valuable. It's the flip side of it.
So why is suffering bad? Suffering is bad because it hurts physically and mentally.
Do you disagree? I think suffering is bad. Nobody wants to have suffering.
Can you prove suffering is bad?
Can I prove suffering is bad? It's the same like asking, can I prove do I exist? Like, if I ask you the question, can you prove do you exist?
It's not the same thing at all.
Well, according to me, suffering is bad. Nobody wants to have it. That's the
proof. But suffering is bad, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So the ontological status of suffering is badness.
Well, I would say nobody wants to have suffering. Like, that's my fundamental claim.
Well, then there's another presupposition. Why should people have what they want?
Just while we were on the last video and we're coming to the end, there's 42 people watching, but there's only 33 likes. So if you haven't liked the video, definitely like the or the stream, because then it will get promoted to more people and more people will be able to see this range of antinatalist content.
Like, most of the people would agree that suffering is bad, no?
It doesn't matter if most people really agree or not. That's a fallacy. If most people agree that the earth is a cheese, it doesn't mean that the earth is a cheese.
When we talk about our world or our universe, it's an objective reality. When we are talking about suffering, it is a subjective experience. There is no objective way to prove that suffering is bad, but we know suffering is bad because it includes both physical and mental pain. Pain is very unpleasant, and that is why we try to avoid it. Our sensory receptors in our skin, muscles, and other tissues send signals to the brain through a network of nerves when we experience pain. We can use anesthetics to disrupt our pain signals, which stops our brain from registering pain. So we very much know that pain is real and physical pain is a part of suffering. There are people who suffer from chronic pain every day. When people suffer, they feel sadness, fear, frustration, and other negative emotions. Suffering leads to a lower quality of life, and that is why suffering is bad. The fact that sentient beings can suffer greatly proves that suffering is bad, and humans can avoid the suffering of future beings by not procreating.
Like, most of the people would agree that suffering is bad, no?
It doesn't matter if most people really agree or not. That's a fallacy. If most people agree that the earth is a cheese, it doesn't mean that the earth is a cheese.
Okay.
Yeah. So it seems like you're a nihilist with everything except for assigning value to what you call suffering.
So in other words, he's not a nihilist.
Again, this is a misconception that antinatalists are nihilistic. No, we do care about people. That is why we are trying to persuade people to take a look at what antinatalism is all about.
Yes, because this is my intuition, and I don't know how can I prove that suffering is bad, because I think everyone would agree to this point.
No, I don't agree with that.
Okay, so you think suffering is good?
No, I didn't say that.
So...
So bad.
Why is ignorance bad?
Why is suffering bad?
Okay, then let's define bad.
Can you prove suffering is bad? Suffering is bad, yeah? So the ontological status of suffering is badness.
Why is suffering bad? Can you prove suffering is bad? Questions like this make suffering abstract, when in reality suffering can be experienced by all sentient beings. Even people with CIP, a rare genetic disorder that doesn't let them feel any physical pain, experience emotional discomfort. If one does not agree with the obvious claim that suffering is bad, then I don't think you can have a meaningful conversation with that person about antinatalism.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think that's all we're going to do for this stream, because we've been going for like 3 hours now. I think maybe just over 3 hours. Yeah, that was a whole range of videos. I enjoyed a lot of those. Some of them I'd seen before, a lot of them I hadn't seen before. Yeah, I enjoyed that actually. So I think we'll definitely do another one at some point. I don't know when, but we'll definitely do another one. I will create another form. Keep an eye on the community tab on the channel, because I post stuff on there. And when I get round to it, I'll post a form for people to, make submissions about what videos they want to see reacted to and stuff. So yeah, the next one we'll get to the videos that we didn't react to today, and any extra ones that people submit, and I may find some more in the meantime. But thanks everyone for coming. I did put my email in the chat. I'll put it again in the chat now, I'll move the mic. Just for anyone who wanted to send anything over, then you can do it via this email. So I've put that in the chat again. And also Charlatan, please message me as well on the email. But thanks everyone for joining. I will I've got more videos coming out this week and I guess I will see you all in the next one.